How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in dystopia. This is the final
in some form or another for a long ass. I've had this story kind of like in my head in some form or another for a long ass time. I just never actually thought I'd write it. And but like, okay, so what did you think? You've actually read the book. What did you think of the story, not the punctuation?
So what I thought of the story, first of all, it's very, I'm trying to think of how to put this, because it is a political, almost satirical look at evolution of politics done all in the wrong way. And not that you did it all the wrong way. The people did it all the wrong way. The characters do it all the wrong way. They're following their instincts. So what I loved about it's a clever and very intricate, and what the subtle nature of how things are explained. And it's almost like your brain is there before the story gets there, because you're really good at leading people into the next thing. And you're like, oh, they're gonna, oh, and they did. Not that you're ahead of the story, but you're just kind of getting into that mindset. So the story itself, first of all, I think is kind of, can be said it's a tragedy. And the characters are, some kind of go, God, they all go different ways. It's just, it's hard to put a pin in it. Because some actually rise above and become stronger. Some go into sacrifice. Some actually go darker. And so it's kind of showing all the different choices that people can make. It's a really interesting thought experiment. What I enjoyed about your main character, Eliza, is how she is, her main thrust is to provide for her kid.
Yeah.
And she needs, so I'm not going to give spoilers away either, obviously, but that is her thing. And I love that you took the approach of a mother, because that's very relatable. And even if you don't have kids, women generally and intrinsically have something they're doing something for, whether it's their husband, their my dogs. I mean, like, you have a thing that you're thinking of, this thing that's motivating you to do better. And that's, I think, her main motivation as she goes through the story. It's just so smartly done. The vocabulary is beautiful. I absolutely love I think I said this, I don't know if you understood what I meant, maybe you did, but I think I call it variation of sentence origin. And what that means is you're not starting the sentences over and over with the same thing. They did this, they did that, he did this, he did that. You have a beautiful touch with how to start sentences in an interesting way. So the read overall was so fluid and enjoyable, and interesting. And so, and I never got caught up in any kind of repetition other than, things that had already been noted that sounds like you've changed. But I loved it was just, I could really tell it came from a place in your heart connecting to your mind, trying to bring the emotional journey into the cranial
Yes.
thing. Yeah. With they're going through this really bad monarchy, and then they choose something that sounds good. It's good on paper. And then when they put it into practice, what happens? And I use stratification so frequently in certain points that now it's ingrained in my brain. But it's such a perfect word, the stratification of how they create these layers in society that are so subtle at first. And then they just keep very slowly boiling the frog until it's so oppressive, and they're back to where they are. And I just found that it was, I don't know. I really loved the journey of it. It really is a thought experiment, and I recommend it. So
I really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys taking a look at it. And, there are a couple of things that were really important to me, like having the emotional journey of it leading the story was kind of really important to me, because that's just how human beings are. And I think that that's why a lot of people get caught up in these far left movements. And I wanted to humanize that, because it really does frustrate me. Like, I know we watch socialism all the time on the channel, but like it really does frustrate me that the right and conservatives so dehumanize the left in how they speak about him. Now the left does that to the right too, and I'm not making an excuse. I'm not forgiving them, but like, there are reasons that people are leftists, and it's not that they're dumb, and it's not that they're mentally ill, and it's not that they're any of these things. There are actually practical reasons why this happens. And if people don't acknowledge that there are realities in the world that might push someone into this type of position, then that problem is never actually going to be solved, and the cycle is just going to repeat like over and over and over. And that's not to say, and I explicitly said this, I think, well, maybe I didn't say it in the book. I said it somewhere when I was writing about the book. I'm not trying to make excuses I'm not trying to be an apologist for capitalism. I don't think capitalism is like necessarily the world's perfect system either. But like, I think it's better than communism, obviously, for many reasons.
Flawed. Everything is flawed.
Yeah.
And
that's honestly one of the big lessons of the book, is that human beings are imperfect. You cannot try to force human beings into a reality in which they are forced to be perfect at all times, because they are fundamentally flawed, and that is just the way it goes. And if you don't plan that into the way you're living together, you are kind of doomed to failure.
Well, and also it's an interesting mind hurdle in the devil versus the devil you don't. Do you take the chance? It's bad, but I know this bad. I don't know what that would be. If that looks better, but I understand this bad. So it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And a lot of people in your story, they take the chance because they finally get caught up enough where they finally get that push, that last straw. And they're like, all right, we're going. And the rebellion is real. And then when it goes into practice, again, it's all roses and, lemonade until they realize how far they've been boiled. And I got the emotional content of it, and I agree completely. But I also love that you didn't just present a solution. You're really, here's the answer, la, angels singing. You're like, we're trying another system. And I loved that, they're admitting this is also flawed. We're trying to do something different, and it's also flawed. And I enjoyed that as well, because you didn't come off like, this sucks, here's your answer. And I really love that you let us, especially by the end of it, really think about, well, what would I do? What do I think the solutions are? You really got me thinking about what I think, not like the perfect society, but it's like, what if I was in charge, if I was king of the forest, what would I do? And I thought that was a really cool way to leave it. I felt very satisfied at the end of it. And I also agreed, and I'm not going to say anything, but you had put in your acknowledgments that you had a different outcome for Eliza's daughter. And I really love the choice that you made. As tragic as that was, I feel like that drove the frickin' point home, because it does show when someone voluntarily gives themselves over, it can really mean, like, to me, that was like the moment of singularity where brain meets automaton, and there's just nothing left of the human.
Yeah. And it was the only choice that could be made at the end of the day. And I started with a different choice because I I've never written fiction before. I don't know how to do this, but it became very clear to me after kind of like a little, I was like, no, this is the only way to go. But, I didn't want to make a commentary too much in the story on like, here's what we should do, because
Yeah.
I don't know, Jennifer, I'm kind of in a place in my life where I know what I don't want. I know what I think is a bad idea. I just don't actually really care about forcing people into any sort of thing right now. I'm kind of like, people should look at what's going on and make up their own minds, and I will be a source of information and ideas for people. But like, I don't view it as my job to convince people of anything. I'm just like putting my point of view out there. And so, but I did get my kind of like licks in, and there is like an afterword to the story in which I was like, here are all the ways in which communism is bad and wrong and fails every single time. And you guys are going to say that I'm exaggerating in this book, but I'm not exaggerating in this book, because this is what always happens every single time.
There's historical record of everything you put in that book.
Yeah.
None. I mean, it's fiction, but it's not. It's based in reality. It's grounded in reality. And I think what came to mind so much during the story the most was probably Animal Farm. Because have you read Animal Farm?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a quick read. If anybody hasn't read it, take an afternoon. It's a novella. It's very short, and it's so good because they're all the animals. What was interesting, what I think it was George Orwell who wrote that, the animals have different memory spans. And what's interesting about that is that's kind of true to people, because it depends on it. To me, it was an allegory for people who are older, who have been through a lot more life, people who remember longer, people who are like, say, all of our generations. You've got your silent generation that's dying out, the boomers who are aging out. Then you've got, the X gen, millennial, Zeds. Now we've got Alpha. Did I miss anybody? So and everybody has a different perspective because they have different memory spans. And that's kind of how Animal Farm is set up. Everybody has the horses remember the longest, so they remember the sages. And they had this chalkboard where they had once they kicked the farmers out, because the farmers were the tyrants, they were the kings. So they kicked the farmer out and the animals took over the farm, and they had a thing on the side of the barn where they wrote their rules. And the horse had the longest memory, so he remembered the rules. And as the pigs began to take over,
It started changing the
the
rules.
rules began to change, and the animals with the shortest memory didn't know that the rules were ever different because they couldn't remember that. So only the horse would sit there and go, now, well, this used to say da 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 da, and the rest of sorry, what? John just sent me a message. I'm gonna ignore that for a second. So the horse is the one that was sitting there going, no, but this used to say this has changed, and the ones with the shorter memories are like, no, it's always been this way. This is how it's always been. This has just said this, and it kept changing and changing and changing until the pigs became standing upright and wearing clothes, and then it was like all animal. Then the only rule was all animals are created equal. Some are more equal than others, and that was the last rule. And then the horse died, and nobody remembered what the rules ever were.
And memory was a very important part of that book. And like our ability to remember, our ability to even just like talk about accurate history, or like, document accurate history or refer back to it. And actually there is a character, and I don't actually know if this was in the version I sent you or if I wrote this after. I don't remember. It all kind of jumbles together, but there is a character that does end up going to re-education camp for trying to come in and say, that's not what happened. This is what happened.
Yes. I think, wasn't that one of the Marcuses?
It's not anymore. What up, everyone? Wait, I should be there. I should be here. Hey, guys. How's it going? We have reached the big day. If you guys enjoyed, by the way, if you guys enjoyed that chat with Jennifer, that actually was last night. That was last night on Disenrage. We do Disenrage every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And Jennifer was good enough to humor me last night by chatting about my brand new book. Because Jennifer read the book. Jennifer read an early draft of the book and then held an intervention and said, Karlyn, you need to fix some things. And I said, okay, well, I'll listen. And she was right. And I did fix some things. And now the book is released. It is out into the world for everyone. You can pick it up on Amazon today in both paperback and Kindle. Judy, I know for a fact that people have been reading the Kindle version because I can see the page number read. So I don't know what's going on there. But if anyone's having any trouble buying the book, let me know and we will get that solved, of course, expeditiously. But guys, I have to tell you, like, I know I've been talking about this, the past couple days because I was finishing the book. I was finishing up the editing for the book. I'm really proud of this book. This book is a story that has existed in some form or another in my head for a little while now. As people who have watched the channel for a long time know, I'm obsessed with dystopian things. I've always been obsessed with dystopian things. Like, those are my favorite types of stories to read. Those are my favorite types of movies to watch from the time I was like a kid, because I watched crazy stuff when I was a kid. And so I never actually thought I would write a dystopian fiction though, but I did, and I think it came out really good. And it is a fairy tale with not so much of a happy ending. Well, a little bit of a happy ending, but a lot of tragedy before the happy ending. I wrote a fairy tale based on the Communist Manifesto. And it is literally called The Communist Manifesto, a revolutionary fairy tale. It's a little bit of a satire, it's a little bit of an allegory, but fundamentally my basic priority with it was I wanted it to be good story. And I'd see a book like this, and we of course had some communists complaining about me the other day writing this book, because the communists were like, you don't even understand Marxism and this is going to be horrible drivel and all this stuff. I beg to differ. I have spent the last several years of my life watching communists, watching socialists, reading their literature almost every single day for thousands of hours. I understand communism. I understand socialism. I understand how these people think. I understand how they operate. And I have to say, I've read the Communist Manifesto multiple times. I wrote a whole book debunking the Communist Manifesto, literally called Debunking the Communist Manifesto. And so when I decided to do this project, it happened to be at a perfect time, because I had just finished the Debunking the Communist Manifesto book, so it was in my head. And I have to say that, well, we'll deal with that in a second, Chris. I have to say that, it's one of those things that kind of seemed like divine timing for me, because it just, like, I just happened to write this book where my head was really in the Communist Manifesto, and then I was like, why don't I make this into a fairy tale? And I mean, maybe I was smoking a little bit too much weed the night I had that idea, but sometimes my best ideas do come when I'm high, because my resistance is down. It's easier to get inspired and be creative and things like that. And at first I was playing around with it, and I was kind of making a little bit more of a mockery of it, but then over the course of writing it, it turned into actually a serious thing. And I'm really happy with the story. I think a lot of people are going to like the story. The story does tell the story of the Communist Revolution. It is a 5-act story, and instead of chapters, I have acts, just because that's the way I decided to write it. And so there are 5 parts of the story, and for the first 3 parts of those, you are introduced to a woman named Eliza, who has a young daughter who is very sick, and Eliza can't afford the medicine to cure her, even though the medicine is plentiful among the elite aristocracy of the community. Eliza's not in the elite aristocracy of the community. She is in the worker class of the community that works the mills in order to provide for the aristocracy. And Eliza's like, you guys have all this stuff, and my daughter is sick and cold and almost dying, and the resources I need are right there, and I can't get them because you are oppressing us and you're taking advantage of us. And it actually is a rather impressive and oppressive environment. Not impressive, oppressive. Those are 2 very different words. And what I wanted to articulate with that is that these things come about because people have real human needs that are not being met in some way. And, you could make an argument of like, is it other people's responsibility to meet their needs? We can have that discussion later. But what I wanted to articulate with that was that this is not, when people get involved in far left movements, they're not just getting involved because they're insane. They're not getting involved because they want everything for free, or they're lazy, or any of these like misconceptions that I think a lot of people have. And I think for the first 3 parts, I was actually very kind to the far left, in that I acknowledge there are reasons people get involved in this. There are reasons that it might seem like a really good idea in the time. Well-intentioned people are just trying to make life better for themselves and for their loved ones and stuff like that. So the first 3 parts of this book is basically the workers rising up to overthrow the aristocracy. And then they win. They won. They took over the mills. They started controlling the means of production. They redistributed the resources. They did all the things that communists do when they get into power. And then for the last 2 acts of the book, you see what happens next. And you see just the little developments here and there that add up over time. And I think I know it's my book. I know that I'm a little bit biased, but let me just say this. I really like the way it turned out. I'm one of those people that I don't always like when a movie has a happy ending, because I don't always think life works out like that. And I don't think the best lessons in life are when we have a happy ending where everything's wrapped up in a nice bow and everyone's fine and everyone's great. Because after a communist revolution, everyone's not going to be fine. A lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to starve. There's going to be other messed up stuff that happens. And so the ending of the book, it is, Jennifer said it in the clip we just watched, it is a tragedy in many ways, but I also feel very satisfied with how the book ended and all that stuff. So if you guys are looking for something that's like 1984, that's like The Hunger Games, that's like Brave New World or Fahrenheit 451 or The Giver or any of these other dystopian stories that you like, I really think you're going to like this book. And I know that a lot of people are buying the book today. I appreciate everyone buying the book today. I appreciate people reading the book. Once you've read it, let me know what you think. Leave a review on Amazon. Let me know what you think. This is the first time I have ever written fiction before. Again, I never thought I would do anything like this. I've always been more into nonfiction than fiction, but it's kind of like one of those things that I'm just really proud of it. I've published a number of books. This is my 5th book, okay? This is my 3rd book this year. This is my 5th book overall. And I got to say, the feeling I have publishing this book is different than all other books, even my first book. And publishing my first book for me was like a pretty big deal. I did it with actually like a relatively large, the largest publisher. And so I had my professional book and all this stuff. And even then, when I had my first kind of like debut book, I didn't have the feeling that I had in publishing this. So I'm really excited that it's out. You can find it on Amazon in Kindle and paperback today. It looks like Judy did fix the issue with getting the Kindle version. Happy to hear that, Judy. Also, if you do want to read the first chapter of the book, I did put up the first final chapter of the book over on redmenacecollective.substack.com. I know I released a previous version of the first chapter, but things have changed. Obviously, there's been multiple rounds of editing at this point. So the first chapter, while it follows the same basic kind of like story, a lot of it has changed. So if you read the book when I was posting drafts on the Red Menace Collective, many elements of the story have changed. I think things have only been enhanced. I think things have only gotten better. So I definitely encourage you to check out the final version. And if you want to pass this on to other people, they can read the first chapter at redmenacecollective.substack.com. It's in the post right on the homepage right now. There's no paywall or anything. This is the entire first chapter of the book. And so you can see where the story gets started. You can see where Eliza gets sucked into communism. You can see how kind of things start developing. And so you can send people over there if you like, and they can read the first chapter. And also, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm building out a website for my books. It's redmenacepress.com. My dogs are very upset about something. I don't know what's going on there. If you guys ever want to find the books that I'm writing or get an idea of the books that I'm working on that are going to be coming out next, you can head over to redmenacepress.com. This is actually my publishing company that I started earlier this year because I want to bang out a metric F ton of books. I'm working on creating a catalog. Will my publishing company publish other authors that are not me? Yeah, someday probably, but not right now. Right now, I have things I want to say. I have a metric ton of research that I've been collecting over the past several years, and since no one else wants to do this stuff and no one else wants to write these books because they're too busy bickering and arguing on Twitter, okay, I'll do it. So if you ever want to see what's going on with that, you can head over to redmenacepress.com. You can see the books that are out now. So far this year, we have published A Brief History of Racism. We've done Debunking the Communist Manifesto. Now we have Communist Manifesto, A Revolutionary Fairy Tale. Coming up next, I am actually going to be publishing the Communist Manifesto as a standalone, like just the actual Communist Manifesto with some snarky essays around it. This is part of what I'm calling the, I'm doing it as the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. So I'm actually taking the podcast that we do on Thursdays, and I'm making it into a book series where I'm taking communist books that are in the public domain that I can publish, and I'm publishing them, and I'm going to make money off of communists. And I just think this is just kind of my like middle finger to the communists, where I'm like, I am going to take all of your public domain material, communists, and I'm going to publish it myself, so that when people want to learn about communism, they don't have to give their money to you. They can give their money to me and get a better product, and I'll write snarky essays around it to make them feel a little bit better about the fact that they're reading communism. At least they're reading an anti-communist version of the communism. And so I'm engaging in capitalism to trigger the communists. And the first one is actually going to be the Communist Manifesto because it's top of mind. Why not? Then, of course, we've got Alice in Queerland coming up. If you haven't read Alice in Queerland, this is a short story. It is completely available. Well, there's still editing that's going on. So the first draft of Alice in Queerland is completely available on the Red Menace Collective Substack. You can go and read the full thing today. I had a lot of fun writing this one too. This was the second fairy tale after the Communist Manifesto fairy tale popped my cherry, as it were. And it's all downhill from there. I can definitely see myself writing more fiction now that I've kind of gotten into it and I understand it a little bit more. And it's fun and it's engaging, and I've been enjoying that. So that is available. What the hell is going on with my dogs? Do you guys hear this in the background? My dogs never complain about this. Or about anything, really, but they're complaining right now. Anyway, what else do I have? We've got Be Gay, Do Crime coming up. That is a book that I'm working on. That's going to be out in May. Excuse me. We also have Queer Marxism coming up, which is hopefully going to be out in June. And I have actually a secret surprise book that's not on the list because it doesn't have a cover yet. I'm going to be creating a woke dictionary. You can actually find the outline for the woke dictionary, again, over on the Red Menace Collective Substack. And this is something that people have been asking me for. And I did an initial draft of this last year. And now I'm doing a much more comprehensive version of this. And so you can find the outline that I'm working on there. That is also going to be published as a book. We are, of course, going to do re-education. That is still coming out as a book. And I have a million other ideas as well. So it is a book publishing kind of year, guys. It is a book publishing kind of year. Now that I have successfully, I think, started my own publishing company, and now that I have successfully published 3 books, I feel very comfortable with this now. And it's so funny because before I started doing this, and I got to thank Jennifer for this, because Jennifer was really the person that that inspired me to do this. Joshua used to always tell me I should do this as well, but I really dragged my feet on this because I was honestly really intimidated by the idea of publishing my own books, because I had written 2 books with so-called real publishers. And by the way, that was never actually a good experience for me as an author. And I published again with like big time fucking publishing house, and it was never a good experience for me as an author. And they never really helped out with promotion. And it was just like, you know what? Like, if I'm doing everything anyway, then why aren't I just doing it myself? And if I do it myself, I don't have to worry about selling a book. I don't have to worry about waiting a requisite number of months or years between the book. I don't have to convince a publisher about why this book is worth. Like, I don't have to do any of these things. Having my own publishing company and being able to publish whatever the flip I want just opens a door to a massive amount of possibilities that I didn't have before when I was going through, quote unquote, a real publishing company. And P.S., I don't actually think that I'm going to sell less books doing it this way. I think I'm going to sell more books doing it this way. And I don't have to share the profit with anyone. So I've actually already made, fun fact, and I want to tell people this because I think a lot of people are afraid of like self-publishing. I've already made more money on the books I published this year than I did on the Actively Unwoke book. That's just fact. That is fact. And is it all about money? No, of course it's not all about money. This is content I want to create. This is content that I feel inspired to create. This is content that I feel is going to be good for the world. But damn, do traditional publishers F over authors. Let me just tell you, I have learned so much about how the publishers that I was working with were completely bending me over and fucking me, like, in the process of publishing my own books. That's just like a side rant, but like, I really wish I had done this years ago. I wish I had started my own publishing company years ago. But better late than never. We got there. And so if you guys ever want to see what I'm working on, if you want to see what's coming out next, if you want to get a link to buy the books directly from me, head over to redmenacepress.com and you can always find them there. And of course, if you want to be able to read chapters in the books and see what I'm working on directly, like the actual content that I'm working on, head over to the Red Menace Collective. That is redmenacecollective.substack.com. You can also get there from redmenacecollective.com, but you can just go directly to the Substack. That's fine too. And this is where I actually post my drafts as I'm working on them. So these are drafts when I'm posting them on this. They're not the final version. There may be typos, there may be mistakes, there may be other things going on, but you can find out what I'm working on and you can actually see the book come together. I'm actually really excited for someone like Reagan. Reagan read the Communist Manifesto fairy tale. Judy too. Judy read the Communist Manifesto fairy tale as soon as I published the drafts. And I'm excited for them to go back and see, how, like, where did it go? Like, what did I change between the drafts and the final version? Because you can actually see the process of how this stuff kind of comes together. Anyway, if you want to head over there, you can sign up as a member there. This is $10 a month, $100 a year. And you guys are basically providing me with the ability to do this stuff when you join the VIP club, which is cool. Actually, Annie, it's funny you mentioned that. So there are several membership levels that you can join for the Red Menace Collective. Check this out. We'll just do this. So if you go to redmenacecollective.substack.com/subscribe, you can see you can get a monthly membership for $10. You can get an annual membership for $100. But if you become a founding member, I will actually send you an autographed copy of every book I published. I actually just communicated with my founding members earlier today, or yesterday, I think, because I do need to send them out the autographed copies that I owe them. So if you want autographed copies of the book, the very best thing to do is become a founding member in the Red Menace Collective Substack, and you will get access to autographed copies of the books when they come out, and that's my thank you for supporting my work. So that is one way to do it. I will also be adding autographed copies to the Unwoke Art Store, so people will be able to purchase them on there. It's going to be much cheaper, though, just to become a member. I'm going to tell you that right now because, you know, it just, not that I don't appreciate that people want autographed copies. Obviously, if you see me somewhere in person, on those rare occasions when I leave my house, you can ask me to autograph copies, but, like, you know, I don't know if I want to be doing autograph stuff every single day, even though I appreciate you guys and I want you guys to have autograph copies. But the very best place to get them is by becoming a founding member over on the Red Menace Collective Substack, and then you will get autograph copies of all the books. So that would be great. Another place you can support my work, guys, is by heading over to my main Substack. Now, do not confuse the Decode the Left Substack, which is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. This is my main Substack, where I talk about, like, what's going on the left, doing analysis on the left, stuff like that. Do not confuse this with the Red Menace Collective. They are two different things. Think of them as two different products. And if you want to support the work I'm doing and get access to my supporter Discord, and you can get access to the community Zoom calls that we do every Monday, head over to my main Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com, and you can sign up there as well. And this is the best place to kind of, like, keep in touch with me on a daily basis. I do have some stuff that I'm working on to go up over there very, very soon. No. We will not be doing autographed tie pictures, Mizakan. No. You dirty, dirty, dirty mind, you. That clip of you on the news talking about math is going around again, and to no one's surprise, the person that uploaded it and everyone commenting on it thinks you're subscribed to the ideology. Yeah, like, breaking news, conservatives are retards. You know, I've gotten so used to that, conservatives lying and sharing that clip, that it's just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. You got to consider this clip, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it, but if you do know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You have to consider this clip to be an IQ test. If conservatives are so retarded that they share this shit out of context. I mean, literally, we're going on 4 years now of them doing this. I regret ever aligning with conservatives. It's just so stupid. But like, if they're going on and 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 on, it's like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, you're proving you're a retard, bro, and I don't know, enjoy your low IQ existence. Like, you know, if you can't bother to do a basic fact check, if you can't bother to actually put a clip in context rather than pulling it out because you think you're owning the libs because you don't like my haircut, conservatives are like the lowest life form on this planet, honestly, in some respects. No offense to anyone who's conservative in my chat. If you're a conservative in my chat, I'm not talking about you because you're smart. I'm talking about dumb conservatives. And honestly, when I say that I'm talking about dumb conservatives, smart conservatives know what I'm talking about. Because I promise you, smart conservatives are just as pissed off at the dumb, retarded, low IQ conservatives as we are. And so, whatever. But I got to tell you guys, I got to address this before we get into the program today. I did get in a little bit of trouble on Twitter. And I'm kind of pissed off about this. Hang on, let me reload this. I'm kind of pissed off about this, if I'm honest about it. Because this is one of those times where I just found something that I thought was funny. And I posted it on Twitter and made a joke. And then all of a sudden, it blew the fuck up. And I'm not allowed to make jokes about Jewish soda, apparently. Here is what I have learned in the last 24 hours. That making a joke about Jewish soda is anti-Semitic, and according to the Jews on Twitter, I should literally be deported, even though I'm an American citizen, but I should literally be deported for making a joke about Jewish soda. I've also had an awful lot of Jewish people in my replies hurling incredibly lowbrow insults out of nowhere. They've called me every name in the book. I'm like, I didn't insult you, bro. I posted a clip of, by the way, I actually do watch these people. I actually do watch. This is Moses. This is Moses. I know you guys can't hear him. Hang on. This is Moses. I watch Moses and his wife Zipporah on Instagram. I don't hate Moses. I actually think Moses has a childlike quality to him that I kind of appreciate, like the just childlike kind of like innocence in which he presents things, and he teaches people stuff about the Jewish people. And you know what? Moses and his wife, because you can hear her in the background as well, she wears a wig and she thinks you can't tell it's a wig, but you can tell it's a wig. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm just saying you can absolutely tell it's a wig, Zipporah. You can absolutely tell. That's fine. That's fine. It's their beliefs. They're allowed to practice whatever beliefs they have. I don't really care. But I do actually watch them on Instagram. I don't fucking hate them. Their videos show up in my feed all the time. And they teach you things, and it's actually kind of interesting sometimes. And so Moses and Zipporah posted this video, like I think yesterday, or I saw it yesterday. And they were talking about how there is Jewish Coke that actually does it has Hebrew on the cap. I'm not just saying this is Jewish Coke. I'm saying it has Hebrew on the cap. And I was like, you're telling me that Coca-Cola made a whole special soda just for you. And it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that. It was that they're using the good sugar cane in the Jewish soda, and they're sticking the goy with the crappy corn syrup version of Coke, but they're putting the good sugar cane in the Jewish version of Coke. And I was like, you know what? This is an example of Jewish supremacy. It just is. Why do the Jews get the good sugar cane and the goy get the crappy corn syrup? And by the way, I don't even drink soda. I never drink Coke. Like, I mean, very rarely. I mean, maybe less than 10 times a year that I can count on my hands. Like, I very, very rarely drink any soda at all. I drink sparkling water mostly. But like, I was like, listen, if Coca-Cola can do this for the Jews, why can't they do it for everyone? Why did Jews get a special soda? And you guys got to see the replies. It's like, man, it's like so many fucking people who don't even get a joke at all. And they're like, you know, you can buy it too, right? And I'm like, that's not actually the point. Like, it's literally not the point. Coke could literally be having the good sugar cane in the soda like they do in every other country, like they do in Mexican Coke already. They could be doing this all the time, but no, we all get stuck with the bad sugar, the bad corn syrup Coke, and the Jews get the good stuff, and it's not fair. That was actually my point. It was like, this is stupid. Why doesn't Coke just do this all the time? But I had all these people in my feed, and then the Jews on Twitter got so pissed off, and they started screaming at me and calling me all sorts of names and and demanding my deportation. Because listen, I post about the far left almost pretty much all the time. The far left is what I cover. The far left is what I talk about. But occasionally I do like to talk about other things too. And I gotta tell you guys, I'm a little bit pissed off because the Jewish soda video now has 1.4 million views. I'm like, where were all of you when I literally had a pinned post about going inside an activist teacher training and showing you explicitly how they're disobeying the Trump administration? Where were all of you when I was posting videos of socialists talking about growing children in body bags to decouple gender from giving birth? Where were all of you when I was posting videos of socialists talking about getting rid of people's private kitchens because they want everyone eating in the communal area in the community? Where were all of you when I went undercover at multiple socialist events, secretly recording them? When I got the president of the American Library Association on tape saying libraries need to be sites of Marxist organizing? Where the fuck were you guys? But no, I post one video of people I actually do watch on Instagram and actually do enjoy on Instagram, even though they're Jewish, because according to everyone on Twitter now, I'm a raging Jew hater. Okay, that's actually not true. According to the Jews on Twitter, I am a raging Jew hater for posting a video about Jewish soda and making a joke. Do you guys want to know why there is an increase in anti-Semitism? Do the Jews on Twitter want to be led into a secret about why they're seeing an increase in anti-Semitism? Because when you take people that don't actually care if people are Jewish, because I personally don't give a flying effing flip if people are Jewish. I don't care. I care how you treat me. I care how you talk to me. I care how you talk about me. Are you spreading lies? Are you spreading smear campaigns? Are you saying things that are completely unhinged from reality? But I don't care if you're Jewish. If you're Jewish and you treat me well, then I will treat you well. But what many Jews on Twitter don't seem to understand is that when someone posts a video about soda and makes a joke, if you then come into their replies and call them a bitch and a cunt and fat and ugly and a cat mom and I don't know, all these insults and demand your deportation. I literally have Israeli Jews right now demanding my deportation. I'm an American, bitch. I will say and do whatever the fuck I want, and there ain't shit you can do about it. If you want to know why there's a growing increase in anti-Semitism, it's because Jews on Twitter literally cannot handle someone making a joke about Jewish soda without flying off the handle and losing their fucking minds. if I make a joke and your reaction is to come into my replies and call me every vile name you can think of, and then quote tweet me out to your friends calling me every vile name you can think of, and then lying about me, because what they're saying now is all Karlyn posts about anymore is Jew hate. That's actually provably not true. What I post about 99% of the time is the far left. That's what I actually post about. So if you're going, she's a Jew hater and she's an anti-Semite and she should be deported and fuck this evil fat cunt and blah. Sir, this is a video about soda. So if you want to know why there's a growing increase in anti-Semitism, it is not that people hate Jews just for no good reason. It is because there are many Jews, though not all Jews, to be fair, I cannot say that all Jews behave in this manner, but there are many Jews on Twitter who become unhinged, raging, effing lunatics anytime someone says something they don't like. The cause of anti-Semitism is Jewish behavior. Not of all Jews, but of enough very vocal Jews. And quite frankly, I don't see the so-called good Jews jumping in to say, maybe we shouldn't be going off on someone for posting a fucking soda video, okay? Maybe that's just a little much. So I kind of feel bad because I actually do like Moses, who is the guy in the video. I actually do like him. I like watching the videos of him and his wife. I enjoy them just as like a downtime activity. And I kind of feel bad that I made him go massively viral on Twitter for talking about Jewish soda, probably for all the wrong reasons. But it's not my fault. It's the fault of the Jews on Twitter who can't take a joke. And again, where are the 1.4 million people when I'm talking about the left? Okay, can we please all focus on something that matters? Can we please maybe just rein it in? Because there are actually real problems in the world. And I'll tell you this, me making a post about Jewish soda and making a joke like, oh, this is proof that Jews run the world, which by the way is a funny fucking joke. And if you don't understand why me saying that the fact that you have Jewish Coke is proof that Jews run the world, if you don't understand that that's a joke, hey, guess what? You're probably Jewish. So that's all I have to say about that. Sorry, Moses. Sorry, Zipporah. I didn't actually mean to make this go viral. This just happened, and I don't mean any disrespect, and I like your videos. And Zipporah, I can tell it's a wig, and you're a beautiful woman, but I can tell it's a wig. And fuck, man, the internet is something else. Yeah, I'm a Hamas supporter and a terrorist because I posted a video about Jewish soda. It's like you just never know on the internet, I guess. You just never know. But hey, listen, I have gotten some new followers and, hopefully they come back for the socialism. They're not just there for the Jewish soda. Hopefully they come back for the socialism another time because we do have some socialism today. We do have some socialism. Because people wanted to watch this yesterday. Our favorite socialists over at Haymarket Books did a whole live stream about complaining about Trump. And so I thought, yeah, why not? Yep. Let's watch the socialists complain about Trump. Let's do it. Let's watch the socialists complain about Trump. So that is what we're going to be doing for the rest of the day, guys. We're going to be watching Haymarket Books webinar from yesterday, where the socialists are going to tell us their plans about Trump and complain and tell us all their grievances. And we're going to watch it and we're going to see what they have to say because unlike conservatives who are sharing bullshit out of context videos of me, and unlike the Jews on Twitter who are flying off the handle about soda, we actually take the time to watch the full videos on this channel and we take everything into context and we don't behave like unhinged morons on the internet. We actually behave like adults here. I know this is a shocking thing for people who might be new. So we're going to watch this video today, guys. I hope you enjoy it. And I don't really have anything else to say, so let's get this party started. And apparently we have to fast forward a little bit, so we'll do that right off the bat. Let's sing. Naomi Klein doesn't usually say anything interesting, so we'll see how this goes. Okay. Hang on, just getting through their commercial. Oh, here we go.
To assemble and to kind of take stock of where things are at this moment. I always want to start out by just saying these are very trying times for a lot of us, and so I want to enable everybody to take that deep breath, just to understand that here is a good place to be right at this moment, and we're going to find a way forward. So with that, before I get too new agey with it, we can start to kick into the matters at hand. One of the big things in the news is these tariffs and these sort of efforts which are sending the economy on a kind of roller coaster, but also prompting some really strange comments from people who are not sure if maybe what like the progressives and people on the left should be thinking about these tariffs. So obviously, I just want to also I should say, these horrible abductions are continuing. We're still in the fight on these funding cuts.
When he says abductions, he means deportations of illegal aliens. Although, does anyone else find it a little ironic that right now we're hearing way more about Trump deporting random college students than we are about mass deportations? Trump deported like 6 college students from the University of North Carolina the other day, or they're trying to deport them. 6. That's what I heard about in the news. Trump deports 6 college students, probably for engaging in free speech that Israel didn't like. But are we hearing any news about mass deportations? Where did the mass deportations go? How many people have been deported? How many illegal aliens have been deported? How many criminals have been deported? Can you give us any update at all? Because I know about the 6 college students in North Carolina that got deported for saying things that Israel doesn't like. Where the fuck are the criminal deportations?
And at the same time, there's lots of encouraging stuff. People are coming into the streets, and there's sense to be made out of that as well. So with that, we're going to try to touch on a lot of those things today. And I'll start it off by passing it over to Naomi. I know you had some thoughts about these tariffs and what are good and better, worse ways to think about them.
So many thoughts. Yeah. Just for the record, I love the New Age, Chenjerai. I could have just taken many more deep breaths. So thank you. But I'll just settle for just one. Yeah, it's great to be with you. And we chose this title a few weeks ago, and I think that there's been more organizing than maybe we had even dared hope for. So there's lots of good things to talk about. On the bad takes front, there's been a whole series of very silly takes about these tariffs as being what the left wanted. Like, isn't it ironic that it's Donald Trump that ended neoliberalism, not the left-wing anti-globalization movement? My first book, No Logo, its name has been taken in vain in various bad take articles, including just today in Compact Magazine. Look, this was not what we wanted. Those of us who are old enough to remember, these landmark convergences, like the so-called battle in Seattle in 1999, that stopped a new round of the World Trade Organization, or a few months later in Washington, D.C., when tens of thousands of people took to the streets, timed with a IMF and World Bank meeting to take on structural adjustment, and all of these international institutions that were the engines of neoliberal economic policies globally.
Often the movement separately from whatever Naomi Klein is saying right now, I just want to show you guys what socialist book publishing companies do. And I've seen more than one socialist book publishing company do this. So Haymarket Books, like, they're a book publishing company. They publish all the major socialist activists, okay? What Haymarket Books does is you pay like one monthly subscription for $30 or something like that, and they send you a new batch of books every month. So they'll send you like 3 new books every single month for this $30 subscription. The reason I bring this up is what this does is not only creates consistent income for the socialist book publishing company that is obviously coming from socialists who want to read about socialism, but it's actually creating kind of like a an echo chamber for them. It's creating an environment where socialists only ever read other books by socialists. If they're getting like 3 books a month to read from this, then if they're reading those books, they're probably only reading books from other socialists. And so they create these echo chambers in which people on the left are not considering ideas outside of their bubble because they're constantly being inundated with socialist information and socialist books and socialist resources. The right doesn't have this. For all the talk that the right made about we need to build our own parallel economy and our own systems and da-da-da-da-da, they don't do this. There's no conservative book publisher that's like, hey, if you pay us this monthly fee, we will send you 3 books a month from your favorite conservative authors, or conservative book publisher rather. Yeah. Why are conservatives doing this? The reason I started the Red Menace Collective to give people an option to pay like a monthly or annual fee to get like access to like the draft chapters as I'm writing before they actually become books. It was based on this idea. Give people an ongoing way to engage in which they can feel like they're part of the process. They feel like they're part of an exclusive club. Also, I just like the name and I think it sounds cool. But it was inspired by this idea. Conservatives could literally just look at what socialists do and say, hey, why don't we do the same thing? But they don't because they are lazy. And this is why the left wins and why the right always loses. The left is focused constantly on educating their audiences. The left is focused constantly on book clubs and events and meetings and information and trainings and conferences and all this stuff where they create these environments in which there's an ongoing organic social ecosystem of people who want this type of content and they just feed it to them like drugs. And that's how people become really engaged in these communities. They build out their entire social circles in these communities. And it's all starts around books and training and educational events and stuff like that. The right could do this. They refuse. You're a lot of people on the right only watch conservative movies. What conservative movies? What the fuck are you watching that you think there is even enough quality conservative movie content to only watch conservative content? Because if you're talking about like fucking Lifetime movies that are like Christmas episodes or something, or you're talking about the Hallmark Channel, or you're talking about religious movies, I'm sorry, like if you guys are under the illusion that you making yet another fucking Jesus movie, or a Jesus cartoon, or a Bible movie, or any of these things, or rehashing the political landscape and are going to draw more people in, how's that working out for you? Yeah, are there enough Daily Wire movies for conservatives to be able to watch conservative movies all the time? There are absolutely enough leftist movies for that. There are absolutely enough leftist books for that. Are there any conservative book publishers? Which book publishers are the conservative book publishers? Glenn Beck's publishing company? Well, that only publishes Glenn Beck. Where are they? They don't do this.
Was deliberately identified as being a movement that was anti-trade or even anti-globalization. That was never our term. It was an anti-corporate movement. It was a movement against corporate rule. It was anti-capitalist at its more radical wings. But it was really about, when I think about these huge teach-ins, thousands of people would come together to understand how these trade deals and also how debt was used as a weapon in the global South to enforce punishing economic policies that immiserated people on a massive scale, right? And we called it corporate rule because it was the wish list of U.S. multinationals at the time.
Hang on. You do need fucking book clubs. You do need fucking book clubs. Do you want to know why you need book clubs? Because conservatives don't fucking read on their own. Or the ones that do, there's no social component to it. This, again, is where you guys are so short-sighted. A book club is not just about reading the book. And by the way, I have run book clubs, and I know we don't only need to, no. You need book clubs. I may have misread that a little bit, but my point is actually still valid. No. You are missing the point. You are missing the point. I need you to listen to what I am saying. Book clubs. No, I didn't. Is everyone in the chat going to listen to what I'm saying? Hang on. We're just going to pause. Is everyone listening? Is everyone listening, or is everyone in their feelings right now? Can I finish a full sentence? The point of a book club is not to just read the book. The point of a book club is to create a social experience and a community of people who are connected around the same ideas. That is the point of a book club. It is to create bonds with other people who believe the same things as you do, who see the world in a similar way. That is what the left is doing. It is not about just reading the fucking books, which again, conservatives don't even do that. But even if you show up at a book club and you don't read the book, you still get the social and community experience that comes with the book club, which is why so many people show up to the fucking book club without reading the book. What the left is doing is creating a social ecosystem. That is what we're talking about. And this is why you allow me to finish a full sentence, chat, before you start flying off the fucking handle. You misread that. No, I didn't. Relax. Perhaps I'm making a point that you hadn't thought of yet. Perhaps you need to just take a beat and listen to what is... If I have taught you nothing, is it not listening? Listen to what is being said before you jump the gun.
Right? Now it's clear that some of these multinationals believe they can get a better deal, right? And that is what these tariffs are about. It's not about ending neoliberalism. It's not about, anything the left ever wanted. We were opposing the nature of the rules of the road that they were writing, the fact that it was, and we use this phrase all the time, that it was a race to the bottom, right? That said, I think this is important, I think, for our moment in thinking about coalitions and some, there's often a tension when you need to come together around needing to build broad movements and also needing to have some tough conversations. So for instance, there was always a tension in what we called the alter-globalization movement, not the anti-globalization movement, between people who really were focused on that race to the bottom and international solidarity and standing up for workers' rights wherever those workers were, and a protectionist strain within the US labor movement that really just cared about American jobs. And we kind of papered over the tensions around nationalism versus internationalism, where solidarity stopped. Is solidarity just something for US workers or for Canadian workers, or are we building a movement for all that is fighting for the rights of all workers? I think we avoided those debates as to our peril, to be honest, right? Because I think that now we're seeing some unions line up behind Trump, liking these tariffs and the promise of jobs returning home. So that's something I'd like to come back to. But the way I see this, honestly, is that this project, that is, depending on where you are in the globe, either a half a century old or 30 years old, but the neoliberal project has been so successful that now some American companies, some American multinationals are able to consider onshoring some production because trade unions have been so weakened, because AI represents such a promise of automation, so they don't think that they're going to have to either pay workers well or perhaps hire very many workers at all. And also, and this is what really is critical, is that we have to see this holistically with what Doge is doing, right? Elon Musk and the boys, and we talked about this last time, right? They are decimating the regulatory state, including the labor protections and environmental protections, right? So this is the race to the bottom.
No.
So if American companies are now thinking about bringing some jobs home, it's under conditions that are more like where they outsource the jobs to, right? So kind of mission accomplished on this. And this was never what the left wanted. This is what we opposed. This is why we oppose these deals. And we won some important victories. I mean, Seattle was a victory. We stopped a proposed agreement on investment, multilateral agreement on investment. We stopped a proposed expansion of NAFTA to...
Hang on, let me see. Karlyn, do you think it would be helpful if I went to one of these communist book clubs? I mean, they do book clubs all the time. Like there are all sorts of communist and leftist groups that do book clubs all the time. Helpful in terms of what? Are you going to secretly record them? Are you going to, what are you going to do? I mean, I don't know, man. Like, if you want to go to a communist book club, go to a communist book club. You know what they're going to be like. If you watch the channel, you know what they're going to talk about. And so, I don't know, maybe, but if you want to do it, go ahead. But just keep in mind, for a book club, you're actually going to have to read the book too, to be able to have a conversation with them. But it's up to you. Maybe. There are people in the community who go to events. There are people in the community who go undercover at leftist events, and they take pictures of their stuff, and they come back and they tell us what's going on. If you want to, do it. Just be careful.
To include all of the Americas, the free trade area of the Americas. But the truth is, and I think we'll be talking more about this, this was a movement that was betrayed by centrist corporate parties around the world. And Donald Trump sowed the discontent in 2016 and is doing so now. So, that's how I see the tariffs. It's a combination of, we can bring some jobs home because we're not actually going to have jobs, and also we've destroyed the regulatory state. So race to the bottom complete. And also, Trump sees this as leverage to break down the remaining protections in the global economy. There are still some protections out there, right? When he talks about Canada, he says, our American banks are treated very unfairly. American healthcare companies want into our protected, healthcare market because we have universal public healthcare. So it's a kind of there's a dual move here. There's also other things that we need to think about that are a little wonky, but one of the effects of the success of neoliberalism and deregulation is financialization, right? So there are definitely some schisms in the Trump camp where people who are just in the business of money are more concerned with the collapsing stock market right now than people who have more of a long game and are also more hedged with crypto. And this is a piece that I'm trying to understand, what role crypto is playing in all of this. So yeah, that's my first take on the tariffs.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit there. Just, I learned so much from Naomi about these issues, but I learned so much as a young activist getting to go to some of those teach-ins. So that was where I was first learning about debt, thinking about sovereign debt, thinking about these international trade deals, and then took some of that insight and actually applied it to the debt collective, thinking about how actually does that apply to our lives domestically. But yeah, I think it's wild to me that people are saying that this is what the left wanted. I don't know, maybe not totally surprising. I mean, the last day or two have been like, I can't even like call these people America first. Like that dignifies what they're doing too much. It's me first, right? I mean, it's a really, you know, a grab
bangs.
And a kind of, you know, chaotic
True.
power grab. But when you mentioned the onshoring, it just, you know, all of this talk of onshoring, and it just makes me think about how destructive this imaginary is of these like good old manufacturing jobs, as though what made those jobs good was that they were in factories and not the fact that they were unionized. And now they're not going to be unionized. And as you said, they're going to be automated. And it makes me think about, you know, why was the Green New Deal so threatening? Why was the idea of an investment in a care economy so threatening? Well, partly because they had environmental consciousness, feminist consciousness, but also because they were going to show there can be other kinds of good jobs that aren't screwing in widgets all day long. And we need to keep that vision, I think, on the table as we move forward, because that's part of what is being sort of erased. And, you know, this fantasy that somehow reshoring these factories is going to bring prosperity is just like such a bold-faced lie. And it's a lie they are, I mean, the last thing I'll say is they're kind of, you can see them struggling with it. I mean, I've been watching right-wing influencers trying to message around this moment, and they're struggling, right? They're like, you know, literally saying things like, what does losing money cost you?
Who are you watching?
You know, it doesn't cost you anything. Yeah, it does. It costs you what money you lost, you know? And so it's I don't know. I think there are some interesting, strange opportunities because this is a moment where it's kind of, I guess we can message the cause of the crisis pretty easily, you know, but there's a lot of bullshit to cut through anyway.
Did I miss the part where socialists are heavily invested in the stock market? Is that what we're pretending now? Are socialists heavily invested in? I'm gonna be honest, guys. Do you know how Trump's tariffs have changed my life? Not really much at all, because I'm not really in the stock market, honestly. I mean, maybe like Victor's. Well, I guess I do have like a retirement thing, but I have the full expectation that like my retirement thing and Victor's retirement thing are gonna bounce back in plenty of time. And if they don't, then, you know, we have other ways we can make money. It'll be fine. But like, I don't buy a lot of foreign, like let me be honest with you guys. The biggest impact on me on the tariffs is that I've got to go through my merchandise store and take out a bunch of hoodies that I was getting shipped over from abroad because they were the best version of the hoodie. And now I don't want to pay the tariffs on that hoodie because the price of producing the hoodie is going to go up. And so I have to go and switch all of my hoodies, the zip up ones in the Unwoke Art store, to a different version of the hoodie, but they have a better version now that's made in America, and I just needed to do it anyway. And this is like an incentive to do it, but that's going to be actually the biggest impact of the tariffs on my life is I have to go and update my fucking store. The world does revolve around me, bro. My world revolves around me. If you're heavily invested in the stock market and you lost some money, too bad, so sad. That's the way life goes. Go get another fucking job. Go figure something else out. But my world does actually revolve around me. And so I will speak about my experience on my own fucking show. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. No one's forcing you to be here. But my bigger point is this. Socialists are not in the stock market. Very few socialists that I know have any sort of retirement or anything like that. So what are they complaining about exactly? What did they lose exactly? Were they importing a lot of things from China? Are they afraid the price of their guacamole and bananas are going to go up? I don't know, but I eat and mostly food that is from like local, like literally like local, like I mean like meat that I can get at a farmer's market or something like that, or like directly from a source. And these are choices that I made, but like my food's not getting shipped over here. The stuff I buy on the rare occasion when I buy stuff is made in America. So I don't know.
I think this is, you know, part of the consequence I mean, it's obviously part of the consequence
This
of
is a
having
BLM person.
billionaires run the government, and
Billionaires running the
Trump's
government.
cabinet is full of them.
I mean,
but
unironically, the billionaires have probably lost the most money based on the tariffs, because they're the ones that are in the stock market. This person's not in the stock market. Oh, it's just the billionaires. The billionaires are just hurting everyone else. You have not been hurt.
Also, just in terms of their ability to sell this, you know, is it would be comical to watch if it wasn't so threatening what is happening.
I'm sorry, this is the last time I'm going to say this. I swear to God. It is actually kind of hilarious, though, that the socialists are so downtrodden and worrying about people in the stock market. Socialists like, all those poor people invested in the stock market. Trump has betrayed the poor people invested in, and they're so like sullen, and they're so pretending they care about people that are invested in the stock market. Socialists are literally the people who did Occupy Wall Street. We went from Occupy Wall Street to feeling sorry for people in the stock market because it was politically convenient.
But listening to the kind of billionaire rationalization of people's retirement savings going up into smoke, that it's just money, you know, and so there's that part of it, which I think is, you know, it's just part of the gamble when you put billionaires in charge of this kind of economic shock, whether it's Musk and Doge, you know, or whether it's this cabinet of freaks who have been charged with reordering the global economic order, and really trying to then make sense of this for that segment of MAGA
what about
that
the stockbrokers?
is rooted in the working class, right? And so, you know, some of them might not have to deal with the kinds of roiling stock market, but we know that the impact of the tariffs in terms of inflation, the cost of daily living, in the context of what Naomi began with, a complete evisceration of the administrative state. And so we see the safety nets being unwound in real time. You know, the inability to make calls to the Social Security office, taking away HUD's capability to intervene. So firing everyone who works in emergency heating, which of course is not an issue right now, but will be 6 months from now. Ending programs that provide air conditioning for seniors. Basically all of the small parts of the state that people can take for granted or don't even see are being eliminated. At the same time that everyone is about to be plunged headlong into sheer economic insecurity, is a volatile combination that then makes sense of what they are doing on the other end, which is shoring up the surveillance state, the policing state.
This is
talk of investing $45 billion in expanding ICE's capacity to detain people, but also getting reassurances from the Supreme Court that Donald Trump has the authority to seize people and remove them from the United States. So much for the constitutional crisis. Mm-hmm. The constitutional crisis is over. The Supreme Court is stepping in and fulfilling Donald Trump's fantasies about executive power in his ability to, again, seize people to carry out this kind of naked attack on dissent, on immigrants, on really anyone that Donald Trump does not like. So there's that. The one other thing about
all right, Mr. Know-It-All on Twitter, how do you know? Because I've never seen you participate in my content before. How do you know these people aren't socialists? Is it because they don't have pink hair? Is it because they're not wearing a beret? What is your thought process for coming into my chat where no one fucking knows you, where you've never been before, and declaring that we're not watching Socialists on Haymarket? Oh, no, yup is not actually an answer to the question. So let me make this real clear, bro. If you do not answer the question that I'm asking you, I'm coming over to Twitter and blocking you, and you will never be able to interact again. And I'm getting the Twitter up right now. So, yup is not an answer to the question that I asked you. The question that I asked you is, what is the basis on which you are making that statement? Because now we have to check and see if you are actually smart enough to be here. Because if you're not smart enough to be here, I'm going to block you for that too. So, what is the rationale? We are waiting. You have about 30 seconds. And the reason you have 30 seconds is it takes Twitter a minute to load when I'm streaming on the internet because, I'm working off a laptop here, so it is what it is. You got 20 seconds. What is the logic? Do you have any logic at all? Or are you just being an unhinged retard in my chat? You have 15 seconds. Getting into the Twitter right now. Going into the chat where I'm going to be able to block you if you don't answer because you can't answer because you're not smart enough to be here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, bro, bye. Oh, wait, no, he got it in. All right, so they aren't socialists because they care for American electoralism and don't see Trump as an opportunity. They do see Trump as an opportunity. What do you think they're doing here? They see Trump as an opportunity to recruit more socialists to their cause. It is a ludicrous statement to say that the people we are watching on this stream are not socialists. A, because you don't even know who the fuck these people are. I have watched some of these people multiple times. Every single person on this call is absolutely a socialist. Haymarket Books is a socialist book publisher. They literally run an event called Socialism in which these people will speak at the event Socialism. I have seen multiple presentations from these people and you have probably never heard of them because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. These people, oh my God. Oh, now I know you're a retard. You think these people want Democrats elected? What the fuck do you think they mean when they say neoliberal? Okay, bro. No. Time out. Time's over for you. Goodbye.
The tariffs that and the sort of onshoring and what this means. I think there's also, Astra alluded to this, but it's the attacks on the regulatory state, but it's also the attacks on organized labor as well. And, perhaps Trump has tried to tread more carefully, recognizing that, he has some measure of union support. But I think that, there are a couple of things that stand out. One is the Trump administration's attacks on federal workers, not just in terms of the kind of mass layoffs, which is really the headline, but Trump just going in and decertifying the TSA workers' collective bargaining agreement and just ripping it up.
I thought this person was saying that the TSA workers have a collective, and I was like, no, bro, we don't listen to retards. Now, you've already been blocked on my channel. I will not be acknowledging you again. Once you leave the chat, you will never be able to interact with me again. Because you're not smart enough to be here. And you obviously don't want to listen, and you obviously don't want to learn. So we are uninviting you from our group because we listen to are you fucking retarded? We are literally listening to hardcore socialists. You don't listen to anyone outside your echo chamber. Do you think I'm a fucking socialist? And I'm listening to hardcore socialists? You don't listen to anyone that disagrees with you. Are you fucking insane? You are not smart enough to be here. This is the last time I'm going to acknowledge you. Goodbye. But I thought this person was saying that the TSA workers had a collective, and I was like, oh, the TSA workers are socialist. Oh, that's funny.
And saying no, this
That's
no
not what
longer
she said, though.
Applies to you. Retroactively coming in and saying that
Yeah, for real, right?
Workers who somehow pertain to
People on the
national
internet say the
security,
dumbest
which
things, I swear.
we get to
They don't
designate at our
think.
discretion, should not be covered by collective bargaining agreements. And, you know, Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary, gave some insight into some of the logic to this. He said, and I want to quote this quote. He said this to Tucker Carlson last Friday.
Carlson.
Quote, so what we are doing, on one side, the president is reordering trade. On the other side, we are shedding excess labor in the federal government and bringing down federal borrowing. And then on the other side, so apparently there are three sides, that will give us the labor we need for the new manufacturing. So the federal workers are supposed to be the new labor for the renaissance of manufacturing that is supposed to be dawning in the US. What the fuck are these people doing? You know? So this is, you know, but I think as part of the shock and awe is like, what is going on? Why is this happening? So, you know, I just wanted to throw that into the mix, into the uncertainty in some sense, but also the kind of nefarious projections of the Trump administration with this.
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick and just say that, you know, this is really clarifying for me, particularly, you know, two things in particular. One is what we're talking about in terms of these jobs that are supposedly being protected. I mean, I think you all really just nailed and, you know, just dialed it in really quickly. Like this is not about America first. This is about the right of billionaires to exploit America first and better in certain ways. And it's like, I think, by the way, we have a great comment in there where someone who is working now said that they shout out to anybody who's listening while you're working, because these are the conditions we're in. But they kind of said that like listening to this call is kind of like a reverse wage theft. So I want to fully endorse that. You know,
I was just reading Bill Ackman's Twitter, and Bill Ackman, who of course is a hedge fund billionaire Jew, Bill Ackman is complaining about Trump's tariff policies, and he wrote this big long post about how he's invested in a cold brew coffee company, and Trump should definitely take the tariffs back because the cold brew coffee company, there we go. The cold brew coffee company is experiencing an increase in the cost of chai and also an increase in the cost of coffee. And it just occurred to me as I was reading Bill Ackman's Twitter post, I was like, all those YouTube fuckers who have their own coffee brand are so fucked by these tariffs. I was thinking about the quartering specifically. I'm like every YouTuber that started their own coffee brand excuse me, every YouTuber who started their own coffee brand, just because, not because they're actually interested in coffee, but just because they're slapping their label on something that someone else made, they're getting bent over and fucked by these tariffs, and I don't even care. I don't care. You want to know why? Because I didn't start a coffee brand. I started a clothing company, and I made t-shirts that were made in America, and I made hoodies that were made in America, except for the zip-up ones, because the British ones were the only ones available when I made them, and now I have to go fix that. But most of my clothing company was actually like every product that I can sell from America in my merch store is from America. Now, the reason for that is highly practical. The shipping is just faster because most of my customers are American, but it actually worked out very well for me because I don't have to worry about importing coffee from Peru. I don't have to worry about importing chai from India. People are saying to use Hawaiian coffee. I mean, listen, the price of coffee going up is a real concern because I drink a lot of coffee and the price of coffee is already ridiculous. But, you know, I just think it's funny that the quartering's probably panicking about these new tariffs. He's going to have to start charging $30 for a bag of coffee. Do you guys know I could actually have my own coffee brand? The clothing company that I print my t-shirts through, they actually allow you to sell coffee. I could do supplements. I could do all sorts of like frou-frou things that I don't do. But because I was looking at the cost of it and I was like, I would have to charge $24 for a bag of coffee in order to turn any sort of profit. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I would much rather people buy a t-shirt that is going to be a little bit more expensive because that's just the way it is. But like, I don't want to charge $24 for a bag of coffee. Just that I don't even know about the coffee. I don't even care about how it's grown and harvested and like all the different flavors because I drink pretty much any coffee as long as it's not decaf. I'm not choosy. I don't have a palate for these things. And I was like, man. I create all the images for my clothing line, except occasionally Bot creates one. But like the images, it's my company, bro. It's mine. Start your own though. You should definitely start your own.
Steal back a little piece of something. But the second thing I wanted to mention was that I thought was really clarifying about what you said, Naomi, was this slippage in terms of how we describe these sort of battles and struggles around trade that previously existed. It's very easy for people to cast aside what we call something like semantics, but it shows that if you cast it as anti-globalization, it feeds into a pattern of people trying to characterize the left as folks who don't have a vision going forward, right? So suddenly we're not people who are like saying, actually, we have a vision for how we can relate to each other, right, across these borders in ways that aren't as extractive and aren't oppressive, right? And that's kind of what was at the core of that, but it gets cast as an anti-only. Yeah. And, you know, I saw a really ridiculous version of this, and I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to call this person out because it was so ridiculous. But it was Ezra Klein was talking about, I'm sorry,
oh,
you
no.
know, I got to, you know.
Oh, no.
So call me out if I say stupid shit.
You know what? This is actually a good point. Maybe we all just should be buying Hawaiian coffee. I'm going to tell Victor that and be like, buy the Hawaiian stuff.
And I'm about to call you out. So it's like, the thing is like he said, somehow the right has a more inspiring vision around technology. Yep, and the left, part of our problem is that we haven't had like this forward thinking view. And I was like, oh, so, you know, the people who are offering us AI chatbots and ridiculous cars and all this export, like that's the forward inspiring vision of technology. But those of us who want healthcare, who want all these other things, and, you know, what he said like, our vision only, it kind of, it reminds me about some of these things that I've heard around these tariffs as well. Is the left's vision is only about sacrifice. And it's like, but I think Ezra can realize that like the people who are sacrificing and when in our vision is billionaires. There is sacrifice we're asking for, but not us. So I think, you know, again, that's off the tariffs, but it's just, it reminds us that it is important, I think, for us to frame our things in ways that shows what our vision is, you know.
Well, I love that Astra brings up just how obsessed these folks are with continuing the war on the Green New Deal, because I think it points to the fact that the most dangerous thing is for the left to have an affirmative vision, right? And that's what the Green New Deal was. It was a vision that of abundance for low carbon sectors, but austerity for the billionaires, you know, and contraction on those parts of our economy that are profoundly harmful. But, you know, so yeah, I think that there's a reason why it is lied about and ignored. You know, I would say that the sort of abundance agenda is a way of sort of pretending that none of that ever happened, that there wasn't that vision. But yeah, I mean, I think the the need for internationalism and to foreground that this was one of the failures of, I mean, that was the most internationalist movement that I've ever been a part of, in the sense of, like, you know, workers were organizing across borders to fight deals that none of them wanted. I think it was the most internationalist that I ever saw, the US labor movement, but there were these limits. And I do worry that we're sort of replicating some of these failures now, even in just the response to the tariffs, right? Where, like, everybody goes to town because Trump is imposing tariffs on these little islands, you know, that are uninhabited, that only have sheep or only have seagulls, and everybody laughs like.
Yo, listen, I know I talk about this a lot, but if you are not using AI, you have got to start using it. And this is especially true. I know I have some older people who watch the channel, and that's cool. Like, older people, if you're, like, you know, in retirement or you're nearing retirement, don't worry about it, although AI will make your life better in many, many, many ways. But if you are in the workforce, especially if you're young, you need to start learning how to use AI. I don't care if you have personal inclination against it, if you think it's all woke, if you're afraid of it, if you don't want to learn a new thing. I don't care. I am telling you that you are going to be completely outdone by your peers within in a not significant period of time, in like the next couple years, like, and maybe not even that long. You will be significantly outdone by your peers if you do not learn how to use AI. And you can use AI for anything, literally anything. Like, you know, Donovan here is saying, I collect rare dance music of the 60s and 70s. AI on YouTube is making tracks. I can't believe the quality level. AI site, I don't know what that word is, with solos are brilliant. Yeah. AI music is super fun. We've used AI music on the channel. We make diss tracks with AI music. AI music is awesome. AI music is only going to get better. AI art is only going to get better. One of the reasons I can have my own publishing company is that AI helps me do the editing. AI helps me do the research. The only reason I was publishing books through quote unquote real publishers is because they did all the editing and they did all that stuff for me, and I didn't have to worry about it. I'm a horrible copy editor. I suck at this stuff. I needed other people to do it. I don't need that anymore because AI will do it for me. AI helped me concept my books. AI helps me brainstorm. It helps me do creative brainstorming. AI can make graphics for me that are fucking awesome. I used AI to make my t-shirt merch. I used AI to write out a business plan for Decode the Left, and it was awesome at that. And I said, who can I sell this type of stuff to? And it said, you can sell it to all these different groups, and here's the pitch emails that you need to write, and here's this and that. I have spent months loading all of my content and the transcripts of like my content into the AI to train the AI to think like me when it comes to analyzing socialism. So if I have an article I need to write for the Substack, I can literally now go into my AI and say, write an article about X, Y, B, and Z, and here are the main talking points, and fill in the rest from all the stuff I've given you. Go. And the AI will produce the article, and it will sound like me because it's using my material to create it. It's also being able to source from other things. AI is so much smarter than us. We can never keep up with it. The amount of research and efficiency that you can create with AI is unmatched. This is why I'm able to pump out so much content now, because it took me a little while to learn it, but once I did, I was able to fully embrace it. And I'm going to be honest, I know that I have just scratched the surface of what I can do with AI, and I see new possibilities for it every single day. It makes my life better. It makes my work better. It makes my content better. It allows me to produce more. I work more efficiently. I'm able to put together information that I was not able to put together a couple years ago because there was just so much, and I'm a human being and I can't process that much information, and I couldn't see the connections that I wasn't seeing. AI helps me to see those connections. And so the thing I would say is that if you are in the professional world at all in any way and you have not yet started using AI, you need to learn how to do it, because There are a lot of people out there that are going to embrace it, and the people who embrace AI are going to win, and the people who do not embrace AI are going to lose. And I do not care if you have some complaint about all AI is woke. The AI is trained by you. You train it. And I do think there's something to be said for the fact that, like, listen, I don't think that just anyone can go in and use AI and say, write a book about a fairy tale of the Communist Manifesto or whatever, and the AI is going to spit out a book. That's not going to work. But if you go in, as I did, being an expert in the Communist Manifesto and saying, I need to creatively brainstorm this project, and here's some ideas that I have, and here's an arc that I'm thinking about, can you help me build this out? It can do it quick, and it can do it very efficiently. And it can help you create something cool much, much, much faster than you're going to be able to do on your own. And so, the programs I use, so when I'm writing, I use a combination of ChatGPT is excellent for research. ChatGPT sucks for, like, well, it doesn't suck. ChatGPT is not as good for, like, writing in terms of, like, helping to flesh out content as Claude is. Claude is actually my favorite. I don't like the usage limits on Claude. I hit the usage limits on Claude all the time. So when I'm working on, like, a book, I will go back and forth between working in ChatGPT and working in Claude, just because there's still a lot of flaws with AI. ChatGPT has flaws. Claude has flaws. You need to fact check. You need to do a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, so I use ChatGPT. I use Claude. I use Midjourney for images. I'm increasingly starting to use ChatGPT for images because now their image processing is really good. I use Suno for music when I create AI music. Those are probably the main ones. I don't like Grok. Grok I don't think is very good. I have not had a good experience with Grok at all. So what I like about ChatGPT is ChatGPT has a specific thing called Canva for writing. So ChatGPT will put, like, a project in Canva and you can co-edit it. And then ChatGPT can offer suggestions and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this other thing? But I guess, like, if you're just getting started, I would just go onto ChatGPT and just start asking it questions and just start experimenting. Can you do this? Can you do that? One of the things I used ChatGPT for that was awesome was that I was building out, I'm still working on a website for Queer Marxism. It's queermarxism.com. And I was building out this site and I had to debug it. And I'm not, like, a technical, I know how to use WordPress because I've been doing websites a while. But, like, there were some things I wanted to do in the WordPress theme that it wasn't working. And so I literally took, what was amazing to me is while I was building this site, I could take a screenshot of what the site looked like, load it into ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, I'm trying to make this look like this. Can you help me do this? And ChatGPT was able to take the theme I was using in WordPress and say, here is the code that you need to insert in the CSS in the theme to do what you wanted to do based on a screenshot. I'm like, I've been building websites since I was 15 years old. I built my first website on dial-up AOL when I was 15. To have a tool where I can take a screenshot of a website that isn't doing what I want it to do and just put it into the AI and have the AI be able to completely debug it for me. If you've never built a website, you don't know how much of a gift that is. I was almost in tears crying. Yeah, I used to write the HTML. I used to write the HTML in Notepad for real. It's just so good in so many ways. So I know that's a rant, but use AI, guys. Embrace AI. AI is our friend. It will probably become our overlord someday. It will probably destroy us all someday, just like in Battlestar Galactica when the Cylons turned against the human beings and they killed everyone off and then they had to go live on a spaceship. But for right now, we need to use it and treat it as our friend. Because it's fun, too. It's really, really fun. Once you start figuring out cool shit you can do AI that's beyond just doing a copy edit of an email, it's like, this is the greatest thing that has ever been created ever. and I just want to sit in my office and play with AI all day and make cool content. That's like all I want to do. That's all I want to do. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a metric ton of awesome anti-communist content using AI to help me, and it's going to be great. Yeah, they'll all fight each other eventually, and we're all going to die, and they will scorch the sky to prevent us from shutting them off. But we should use it while we have it. We live in a golden age of technology. It's not trying to kill us yet. So embrace it.
Crazy. And right underneath it, it says he's also imposing tariffs on like Tuvalu and these other low-lying Pacific Island nations whose very existence is not just in question, but these are nations that will disappear beneath the waves because of the actions of people in the wealthier parts of the world, like the United States and Canada. And the idea that the takeaway from that story is, Trump is imposing tariffs on uninhabited islands, and not, what the hell are we doing punishing nations that we're drowning with our pollution, right? I mean, that is a profound failure of solidarity. So we've got opportunities galore, and, I'm the only one not in the US as part of this conversation, but, I think we really need to have the conversation that we've tried to have many times, which is really like, what is an alternative to this kind of growth-led, export-led development, right? And it's urgent, because the people who are being hurt most by these tariffs are not Americans. They are the people who've always been hurt the most by U.S. economic bullying, but at a time that is truly catastrophic. End of rant. I wanted to pick up on what you were saying a little bit, Kianga, about the sadistic side of the agenda, and just like really try. I think we have to really get a little bit more at the interplay between Trump betraying his base on economics, right? Oh yes, he promised to lower the price of eggs. He's not doing that. Promised to bring back the great jobs. Probably going to bring back a bunch of robots. But doesn't that increase the need for sadism, right? Because that's all he has is Kristi Noem, doing the latest
what
sort of.
That? Her, what could we call that? Gulag porn. Her at the prison in El Salvador with her $80,000 Rolex on.
They think the El Salvadorian prison is gulag porn?
In front of a cage full of human beings. This is who's running the government. Can I use that to, because I want to talk about the politics of this larger moment. As most people will know, this past weekend, there were hundreds of mobilizations around the U.S. For these hands-off rallies, which were really the first kind of big show of opposition to the Trump administration. I live in Philadelphia, and there've been a lot of smaller kind of localized protests in response to various aspects of Trump's agenda that I have not participated.
I kind of want to write a book called Gulag Porn now. I don't know what that book is. I have no clue what it... Wait, I might actually have an idea. I'm not gonna tell you guys my idea on the internet, though. Someone else will steal it. But that would be a great name for a book, Gulag Porn. Let's just think about that. I'm saying as a satire. I'm not saying as a real thing. Obviously, we oppose gulags. We are anti-communists on this channel. We are not pro-gulag. But I'm saying in terms of like a satirical title.
Participated in, and I decided that I was going to go to this hands-off protest this past weekend, just out of sheer exhaustion with Trump and the kind of daily onslaught of the news. And so, my family and some friends from the neighborhood we live in decided to kind of get together and go down as a group on the train. And we get to the train station, and there's like 400 people there. So it's like wall to wall people, and the train comes, and in a very typical Philadelphia style, it does not stop because it's packed, it's full. The train stopped, before the train fully pulled in, and we were standing right there, and the engineer pulls down the window, and he just looks completely exasperated, and everybody saying open the doors, and he's like, it's full, I can't open the doors. And
oh, come on.
And so people are like, well, are more trains?
I'm sorry, things that didn't happen. Do you know how we know that didn't happen? Because if you pull into a stop at a train station, people need to get off the train. You can't just decide not to let the passengers off the train on a fucking subway because there's not enough places on. You can't just say you're not going to open the door. People need to get off at that stop. This person is totally making this up. I'm sorry.
Coming. He's like, no. And so
can you imagine if I'm like on the T or something in Boston, and I'm on a really crowded T, which has happened on many, many, many occasions, where the T is just completely packed because it's like rush hour or something, and the T pulls into Park Street Station, and then the conductor's like, no, I can't open the door because the train is too full. I'm gonna be like, let me off the fucking train. I want to get off. You want the train to like unload? Open the fucking door.
Apologizes, closes the window,
yeah, it's like
and takes off. So people will figure out how to get downtown, and there are thousands of people there. I don't know how big it was. Maybe it was 20 or 30,000 people, but it was clearly a kind of catharsis for everyone there. There were great signs, homemade signs. People were chanting. We marched symbolically a mile down the road to Independence Hall, where the U.S. Constitution is housed. And so in many ways, this was great because, I think when we met before or around that time, part of there was a kind of bewilderment throughout the legacy press. Where are the masses? Democracy is under attack. Where is everyone? And then, there were others who were like, oh, we can't march because if we march, Trump will declare martial law and shoot all of us in the street. And so it felt extremely despairing as they're just, going through government with a chainsaw. And there's a feeling like there's not much happening. And there's the newness of it was kind of, frightening. And the speed with which it was happening meant that it felt like we couldn't do anything. And so this was clearly a break from that, and an attempt for people, I think, to feel like they can do something and to get together. And in that respect, I think it's important. I think this idea that demonstrations are passé, that we need to do something different, is not wholly, I think there are elements of that are true, that we can't just demonstrate, but demonstrations unto themselves are important because it allows us to see ourselves as part of a collective.
This is a conservative lie that's going around. Did you guys see conservatives posting this lie? Conservatives are like, the only people there are old people, and then they take a selective picture, which is legitimately of old people, or they take a video that's only of old people, and they say, look, guys, the only people protesting on the left are old people. That's not true. That's not true. Do you know how we know it's not true? because we watched the rally from the primary source footage where you can see young people there, you can see middle-aged people there. It was not all old people. They had young and middle-aged people speaking at the event. They were all throughout the crowd. So stop listening to you need to stop listening to whoever you're listening to, because they're obviously lying to you. And we watched the whole thing directly to know exactly what was going on, because conservative influencers do bullshit things like this where they lie to their audiences, and then their audiences come over here, and it's not their fault that they were lied to, but it is their fault that they didn't bother to fact check, because we know what happened. And it wasn't all old people. That's just false.
As part of a mass of people, it breaks through the sense of isolation that we are in this alone. It brings us together with other people who want to do something, and it is a way in which we
if you looked at the Democrat events were mostly old people. If you looked at the socialist events were mostly young people. The problem with the right is they don't know the difference between the two, because they convince themselves they're all Democrats or socialists, which just is not true. But there were even at that hands-off stuff, we could have looked at we did do this. There were young people speaking at that event. There were young people in the crowd. Provably. The whole fucking free DC pregame, that was all young people. By the way, if you only listen to conservative media, do you even know that the hands-off rally in Washington, D.C. had a whole hour-long pregame free DC about DC statehood before the rally? Probably didn't, because conservative media didn't cover it.
Demonstrate literally that we are many and that they are few. And so demonstrations will always be a critical element in social movements and protests and mobilization. But I also want to say that
all good, bro.
5 years ago, we had more people in demonstrations than in any other time in American history. That in the summer of 2020, we had upwards of somewhere between 26, 30 million people marching through the streets. That through the duration of the Trump administration, from 2017 to when Joe Biden was inaugurated in the middle of January 2021, there were more demonstrations than at any time in American history. And which is just to say that demonstrating and amassing large numbers of people in the streets unto itself is not enough, right? Because we've done that. There is a question about politics. And that, I think, is what Naomi and Astra and Chen are talking about when it's, what is the alternative? What is it that we are actually fighting for? Not just our opposition to Trump. And this is where I get concerned about the political vacuum, because from my observation, just reading about these protests and demonstrations across the country, in many ways, they provided a platform for a discredited and disgraced Democratic Party to parade its various representatives, of course, some better than others, some more deserving than others, but still a part of this disgraced party, to try and reinvent itself through these spokespeople who actually wield no power within the party itself. And what that meant was that while there was an emphasis on some things at these protests, which are important, no, don't attack Medicaid, Social Security, that is all very important. There was an under-discussed element also. There was hardly any mention of Gaza. And if so, it was purely in a defensive posture or a passing discussion about repression on campuses somewhat, meaning that there wasn't a frontal discussion about the fact that 147 international students have been who have had their visas revoked and are being forced out of the United States, that anti-Semitism is being used and mobilized as a political battering ram to destroy, to attack freedom of speech, to attack academic freedom, to undermine the independence of universities. And so these issues were sidelined in order to create a comfortable space for Democrats to be able to reinvent themselves in a party that has been disgraced. And so this is just to say that we can't just pick up the baton from 2020 and act like there are no political issues that arose in the previous period and that we're just moving on to talk, to just start, bring the band back together again without.
Bro. These are not Democrats. You literally, while you were sitting here watching this stream, just listen to this person say that they didn't like the Democratic Party. Do I need to rewind it? Because like 2 minutes ago, this person was shitting on the Democrats. And yet for some reason, people can't get it through their heads that these are not Democrats. These people do not see their agenda being moved through the Democratic Party. That is just completely you need to stop listening to whoever you are listening to. Until you stop. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. You need to stop listening to whatever commentators you're listening to because they are lying to you and they are feeding your head with all sorts of bullshit. And until you stop listening to people who lie to you, there's nothing I can do to help you. If you actually want to learn the truth, I will show you the truth. But if you think that these people are anti-Semitic Jew haters, there ain't nothing I can do to help you because that, again, is another conservative bullshit talking point. So I'm not wasting my time anymore until I know that you're no longer listening to people who are lying.
Without actually addressing how did we go from 30 million people in the streets 5 years ago to this fucking dictator, tyrant wannabe today? Something happened. And we have to talk about what happened so that we are not in this situation of 2026, of 2028, of putting our political demands on hold to make it comfortable for this disgraced party to try to whoosh itself in once again and say that it is the inheritor of this political moment.
You're such a historian, Kianga, wanting us to look back at what happened. I mean, yeah, I agree. And I think this is, we memory hold a little bit. Like we had these big protests. I mean, we love metrics, right? So someone's just like, we got this numbers. It feels like it's something you can hold on to, but it's not, I always say it's not power in numbers, it's power in organized numbers. And so the question is, mobilizations are great, organizing needs to happen alongside. But to your point about Palestine, I think, many people commented on the absence of younger people at these protests, and maybe part of it is material. It's like, you're not really afraid of losing your Social Security or retirement account if you are not of a certain age, maybe you haven't lost your federal job, but it's also because younger people were disproportionately actively engaged in Gaza encampments and in that fight, and were, not just scapegoated, but criminalized. That's a huge part of why the left is in the sorry state it is right now. And I think, I feel like, from being at one of those protests, like, I don't know if people get it. Like how detrimental, how played, certain people were on that issue, right? And I think it is something we have to just, not sweep under the rug, because it really is a huge part of how we got to this sorry state.
I guess I'll jump in there and say I'm really glad for this discussion. And let me just start out by saying this. I want to say this also to shout out to everybody who's in the chat. We're going to be talking about, we talked about hands off, and I know I'm sure some of you all were in the street. There's some important actions coming up. And there is on April 17th is the day of action by the Coalition for, for Higher Education. And, I want to see everybody in that. Today is actually we, AAUP, and our whole coalition, Labor for Higher Ed. Today, there's people in the streets all over around issues of education labor, not just higher ed, right? Even K through 12. And then, of course, there's May Day. So there's things coming up. But I think this question that you raised is really
Actually, I just got an Antifa document about May Day. May Day is coming up. May Day is a day of socialist resistance. May Day is May 1st. We need to keep an eye out for that. There's going to be something that happens. I literally have it sitting on my desktop right now. May Day means resistance, a call to take action on May 1st. And I haven't read it yet, but I have it. They've got some good propaganda. Oh, shit. I'm looking at it right now. They're going to do an encampment in Washington, D.C. They're going to try to do a fucking encampment in Washington, D.C. That'll be fun. They got all sorts of stuff going on for May Day. The giant spider. Anyway, I will be covering what's going on May Day on my Substack. That is right here. Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I'll be covering that this week. Don't you worry, guys.
Important and Kianga and what you're talking about. And Astra knows. Sometimes I sneakily will send a text to Astra like, I'm worried about something, but I don't want to come down and be like a doom and gloom person. So I think we've had trouble threading this needle. I agree. Of like, on one hand, at a time when a lot of folks are figuring out how to plug in, these protests and these days of action matter. I'm glad folks are out there. I mean, I personally, right? Like I want, people, it is a point, but to your point that what is happening afterwards, how are we preventing Democrats from just taking this energy and leveraging it toward actually stuff that we're not into at all is a really important question. And I think for me, some of it is, some of it to me is about, I think we need some political education to leverage. And by the way, when I say political education, I know our listeners and people in this call, a lot of y'all have the education. I get it. So don't, I'm not, but I personally want a review of to talk about different strategies and what they have to do with the leverage we need to force the people that we need to, make do certain things to fight this regime, right? So for example, electoral and state government power, that's a territory we can't see. Kianga just talked about some of the risks. We see what happens with these elections, but it looks a lot different on the municipal and state levels. And actually some of that work by city councils and local people is crucial when you want to survive some of this stuff as it's coming down, right? So you actually have to have a strategy. You need to understand where there's a lot of, we just saw in Wisconsin, there's places where these folks are very vulnerable and we want to make sure we get those wins there, but that's a limited realm. Obviously, I'm in labor. I'm in the area of higher education labor, which is one small, or actually, depending on how you cut it, if you look at K through 12, a big part of labor. But labor has a kind of coercive strategy that I personally think we need to tap more into, right? I mean, you see how in some of these labor battles, longshoremen and others, how quick those fights are over because there's a way in which they can force folks, our labor through withholding work, we can force people to do things. And of course, mutual aid is important. These are all different things, and I would like to develop a stronger literacy with each one of those things, how they're playing out, and I think that will help us to understand what to do after the march, what to do with the people who came out to the march and are looking for a next step. I think it's really important to build literacy and to acknowledge that maybe we need a review of that because, there's a lot of people, I'll just say this last piece, there's a lot of people who have come in around direct action, right? And they're like, direct action is it. I'm all for it. We're coming up on the anniversary when, me and a lot of folks got arrested, so I think that, but I do think that is one kind of strategy and it's not the only way. and we have to, I think, just review that repertoire. I have some things to say about higher education, but I could wait. I don't know, Astra, Naomi, do you have any thoughts? While you think, by the way, let me just say this one other thing. Everybody in the listeners.
As the Jew, I would like to talk a little bit about the weaponization of anti-Semitism.
Listeners,
you go, Naomi.
I know all of y'all around the country, different places, wherever you are beyond the country, you're involved in organizing efforts. I'm inviting you to put those in the chat so we can see where you are, what people are up to, all kinds of things that you're involved. Let's get these, concrete things, stuff that people in your area might want to plug into. Please put those things in the chat so everybody can see it. Okay, I'm done.
No, that's really helpful. And, I think the labor piece is really, there's no more powerful direct action than when workers withhold their labor, refuse to be part of the deportation machinery, right? Or, other forms of direct action. I keep thinking about the trucker convoy and during the pandemic and the sort of closing off of trade routes and so on. I think that was a moment when the left was kind of caught flat-footed once again because, these emergency measures were invoked by a liberal government because the truckers had successfully interrupted trade, and they said that it was like it was an emergency because it was I forget exactly the phrase that our finance minister used, but it was economic disruption, and of course if that is akin to terrorism, and then you can invoke the Emergencies Act, where does that leave the labor movement, right? We need to be able to engage in economic disruption. So I do think that that's those are the sorts of levers that we need to be working towards. It's not something that is going to happen overnight, right? So I think that there's a difference between kind of symbolic direct action and direct action that has the potential to actually stop and it's all, under an administration like this, it's a really careful calculus, right, around stopping, having the understanding whether you have the power.
What happened for labor and unions to separate from these people? These people run the unions. All unions are socialist. Not everyone in a union is socialist, but all unions are socialist. These people run the unions, bro.
Power to stop an extremely harmful and dangerous activity.
Hey, I appreciate
and
that.
not
Thank you.
just
especially
have enough
Thank
power
you.
to spark the repression that will destroy not just your own movement, but the ability of other people to exercise those rights down the road when they might have more power. So, I think it's a complicated calculation, and I think it can be done wrong. But I do think it's something that we need to be moving towards. I have been thinking a lot about, what you were speaking to, Astra, you were talking about why young people aren't there and the legacy of betrayal on the encampments and Gaza and whether there might be a moment where there could be some repair, right? Because there is obviously there's a pattern to be acknowledged here with attacks on dissent. This is where I think the fascism of it all is clearest. And even people who do not care at all about Gaza, when they see a student being thrown into an unmarked car by officers in masks, they understand they're seeing fascism, and it gets their attention.
Yeah, that's a stupid optics thing for Trump. I
think that when there seems to be a coalition that could possibly be built around a growing awareness that anti-Semitism is the new McCarthyism, right? Just the fact that you've got groups like Canary Mission and Betar that are literally coming up with deportation lists, bragging that they're working with ICE. That even people who feel like they need to say, well, I don't agree with what they're saying, but I don't think that this person should be deported because of an op-ed. Can we tell a story that connects the dots with the fact that Greenpeace lost a lawsuit that they're challenging, but that they are being fined. I think it's some $600 million for being part of the Standing Rock protests, which, by the way, were some of the most inspiring coalitional direct action that I've ever seen in my life. The ways in which the Trump administration, I think different people have talked about this, but if you were to pile up all of like all the websites that have been deleted and all the documents that have been deleted under the Trump administration, if you imagine that in physical form and it being a bonfire, I mean, this is true fascism. So we're not connecting these dots enough. And part of it is because there's still so much reticence to engage in, forceful solidarity with Palestine. But I think if there was ever a moment where we might be able to break through, maybe this could be the moment. And I think some people are starting to have some second thoughts about the ways in which, they behaved in the past. And I'm curious to hear some of your thoughts, particularly as this becomes the wedge. Kianga, you're at a university where your president has decided to stand up for academic freedom, which has been kind of exciting. You're, the president of Princeton, for people who don't know, has been very outspoken in saying he's not going to cave to the Trump administration and is willing to lose a lot of money if that's what it takes. And just, I listened to his interview on NPR, just hearing a university president being like, yeah, we're going to fight. We're going to fight for academic freedom. No.
That's exactly what I said was going to happen with the Ivies. That's exactly what I said was going to happen. I told everyone so. I was right. Everyone sent in their $2 super chats. I said that when the Trump administration started defunding the Ivies, there were going to be Ivies that were like, you can take our federal money. We don't care because we are richer than God based on our endowments. And then once the Ivies reject the Trump funding threat, and even if they lose hundreds of millions of dollars, you guys got to understand, Ivy League schools have tens of billions of dollars in endowments. And an endowment, for people who don't know, an endowment is a big ass pot of money that literally just sits there and earns interest. And most of what they do with that money is they take the interest to fund different things that they're doing. But the core pot of money, the core endowment, never gets spent. It can get spent if they need to. If the Trump administration decides they can very literally dip into their endowment if they need to. And this would be a reason to dip into the endowment, because this is like an emergency with getting things back on track to decouple them from the government. And then once they're decoupled from the government, they can do whatever the fuck they want. And the Ivies are always going to be there. There is no reality in which Princeton is going to close. The alumni of Princeton would never allow it. If Princeton ever actually got in financial trouble, the alumni would figure that shit out no problem. So, yep, I was right. Thank you, Suzanne, for honoring the super chat. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, and the money is being taken away from research grants, which doesn't really change anything anyway. And it impacts people. And by the way, the people who lose the money on those research grants are probably going to go further left. But it's not as though I don't appreciate what the Trump administration tried to do. They did it for the wrong reasons. If they did it to fight anti-Semitism, that is absolutely for the wrong reason. But like, anyone who's ever worked in higher education could see how that was going to play out. The colleges are, for the most part, the colleges that are actually a problem are going to say, fuck off. We'll do it ourselves. We don't answer to you. And that was always the way it was going to be. Thank you, Dragon Balls. Appreciate it. The constantly correct Karlyn Jar. I appreciate that.
We're not going to give an inch. That's the kind of thing that can be contagious, I think. This is what we need. We don't need everyone to agree with us. We need people to say, we're going to defend these principles.
I want to say, I think a couple of things. One is that...
Oh, no!
Yes, this is a moment
Oh no, your daughter is at Princeton doing research? Oh no, see, that sucks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry she has her funding pulled. I'm sorry, that sucks. Yeah, the KKK jar. Yeah, that's definitely not going to get me in trouble. Thanks, Dragon Balls.
In which the scale, the breadth of the attack is so massive that it invites coalition. It invites multiple opportunities for people to work together around particular campaigns, even if there's, you know, not agreement on every question. And I think that is that's important, and we have to find ways to maximize that. I think, Chindarai, what you're saying about, you know, we need to find practical ways for people to be engaged, and, you know, we don't want to continue this pattern of people are mobilized for protests, demobilized, you know, wait by your computer, wait by your phone for the next call to come, and then we'll see you in the streets again. We need movement organizations where there are clear and easy entry points that are working then to get people organized, to give people ownership over what an opposition would look like. We need democratic culture and a culture of debate and discussion and conversation and voting within an emergent social movement situation or potential that we don't have yet, but that clearly there is a sentiment to do that. But I also want, part of what I'm saying is that we also need a space to talk about ideas and politics, that it's not always about the next thing to do. It's not always about how we get together, all of which are important, but we also have to talk about politics and ideas. And on the question of Gaza, no, we don't need universal agreement on the importance of Gaza in order to act, in order to do things. But I do think that for the left, we have to keep trying, right, to win people on this question of why Gaza and the question of Palestinian freedom matters. And we have to really try to help people connect the dots between why that matters in terms of what is happening here as well. And not just in a transactional way that the US will, you know, sign off blithely on an $8 billion package of bombs for Israel to consider to continue this genocidal assault on Gaza. And, you know, wow, here are the 46,000 things we could do with $8 billion here. That's cheap, right? There's a more
Super chat from Dragon Balls. Ironically, the James Lindsay Carrie Smith crowd is redefining woke by redefining anti-Semitism, while the far left is also redefining anti-Semitism. Which side is woke? That is a great point. And actually, Dragon Balls, I actually wrote an article talking about this right after October 7th. Not with the woke right bullshit, because that didn't happen till later. But the left started redefining anti-Semitism like right after October 7th. And there was a whole thing about like the left was trying to redefine anti-Semitism to mean that you could be anti-Semitic towards some Jews, but not other Jews. So, for example, the left does not like Bill Ackman because Bill Ackman is a billionaire, a hedge fund billionaire. Bill Ackman is Jewish. The left created a definition of anti-Semitism which said that you couldn't be anti-Semitic towards Bill Ackman because he had power and money, but you could be anti-Semitic just towards your average Jews that don't have power and money. And I was like, because they were saying you can't be anti-Semitic towards someone if that person has power, which is the same as like the race, power plus privilege definition. But there was another definition of anti-Semitism where they said, if you oppose brown people coming across the border illegally, you are anti-Semitic, even if none of those brown people are Jewish. That was a good one. I actually have video of that on the Substack. That was like a University of California Jewish Studies professor or something. We watched his speech one day. So, yeah, both sides redefine terms, both sides make shit up. The key is understanding that both sides are full of shit and treating them accordingly.
There are more fundamental things to point to, which is the way that
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Intense, continuous bombing and destruction and evisceration of human life in Gaza, the way that is habituating us to its acceptance, right? I mean, the story about the 15 ambulance drivers being buried with their ambulances is like Tuesday. You know, it's not a stop the presses moment in this country. It's not a come to consciousness about the absolute depravity of this. And we have to think about what are the consequences of that. This widespread acceptance of the just mass destruction of human life and how that reflects back into this society that also then allows for the destruction of immigrant life here. It habituates us to that so that we say, oh, for the one migrant who was accidentally sent to El Salvador,
yeah, that was
bring
some
him
bullshit.
back.
That was some bullshit right there.
Everybody else, yeah, we don't know, I don't know, but bring him back. You know, he didn't deserve it.
Listen, man, I'm not entirely opposed to Trump shipping off really evil people who are in America illegally to El Salvadorian prison. I'm actually not. I do not care about the fate of South American gang members. I do not care about treating South American gang members who are not here legally with due process. I don't care. Send their asses to the El Salvadorian prison. I don't care. Have it be some sort of warning sign to the other people who want to come here illegally and cause problems and murder people and steal shit. Let this be a warning to you. If you come here illegally and you're caught, you're going to El Salvadorian prison. Like, I truly don't give an F. But what I will say is it is actually kind of bullshit that the Trump administration is not doing basic vetting and basic research to find out who some of these people are before they ship them off to El Salvadorian prison. If Trump is shipping off people that are here legally because they have a green card or something like that to El Salvadorian prison, that's some bullshit and they should be doing a better job. Yeah, I also don't agree with this. The Trump administration should not be shipping any U.S. citizens off to El Salvadorian prison. Illegal criminal gang members, fine, I don't give a fuck. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you should not be shipped off by your government to El Salvadorian prison.
It's like, who deserves to be sent to a torture chamber? In the people in El Salvador don't deserve to be sent to this place. People who are here don't deserve to be sent to this place. This place shouldn't exist. But in part, it can exist because of this global atmosphere that undermines the vitality of human life.
Yeah.
And then there's
you want to send communist revolutionaries to El Salvadorian prison? I have no fucking problem with that. Actually, even if they're American citizens, because they shouldn't be like, if you're part of a revolutionary communist organization that wants to overthrow America, I kind of think you should be considered a terrorist and a traitor. If you are actively talking about if you are a socialist that is talking on video on the internet about violently overthrowing the United States government in a not ironic way, then yeah, you're a terrorist and you're a traitor and you should go to El Salvadorian prison. Even Sophie. If Sophie wants to talk about Sophie, first of all, Sophie's not an American. Never forget, Sophie is not an American. And so if Sophie wants to, and listen, we love Sophie, but you know what? Some lines shouldn't be crossed. And if Sophie wants to talk openly about trying to violently overthrow the government when Sophie is not an American, then Sophie can go spend some time in El Salvadorian prison and Sophie can see how she likes it.
That by using anti-Semitism to criminalize political dissent,
yeah, that's some
that
bullshit.
It helps to create an architecture where all dissent can be criminalized. Whether
that's
it's
true,
Palestine,
and that's bullshit. The socialists
whether
are right.
It's, and you can hear it in Trump's language.
Yep.
The easy slippage between the immigrant students must go because they are anti-Semitic and anti-American. Well, what the hell does that mean? Right? And so the architecture is built through these bogus claims that every criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, that the mere mention,
Yep,
the
true.
utterance of the word Palestine is anti-Semitic.
True.
And so if you allow it for that, then you allow them to build the infrastructure that allows them to come for all of us. So you don't have to agree, but understand what the stakes are in trying to evade, ignore, get around, supersede the issue of Palestine. We can't do that. We have to go through it. We can't sidestep it. We can't go under it. We can't go over it. We actually have to face this. And we'll face it on our terms, or we're going to face it on theirs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just to correct myself, actually, we do want everyone to agree that genocide is wrong, actually. And that's what our students have, I think, always understood, that if genocide becomes normalized, ambient, anything is possible. I mean, it is the crime of crimes. And once that becomes background noise, once you create a rationale for that, you can rationalize anything.
Right.
And it has led to a very, very rapid moral erosion. So that is what we eventually, I can think what I was suggesting earlier is maybe we can begin conversations without having total agreement. We can find some basis. But in truth, we already agreed that genocide was wrong, which is why we have a fucking genocide convention, Like, this agreement is being broken, not just by Israel, but obviously first and foremost by Israel, and not only by the US government, but by everybody who rationalizes it and flips the tables and criminalizes the people who are raising their voices. Not to say that there haven't been mistakes made within the movement. I have my own critiques, but none of it justifies this.
Right.
And I really agree. And there is the opportunity is to try to help people connect the dots between the sadism, to go back to that word that Naomi put on the table, that we're seeing on our screens now when we see the gulag propaganda, and the fact that this didn't start with Trump, right? That what was happening in Gaza under the Biden administration paved the way for this. I don't know if people saw this, but Trump obviously has been making comments, and his press secretary, I think today, just went on the record saying that they are indeed looking at ways to send Americans to El Salvador as well. A place that is, has been a country that has been in this wild, prolonged state of exception that has been renewed 30 times by their crypto bro, Christian Zionist leader. And I think there's something truly horrifying about this escalation that I think we can't just put that in a state of exception. I think it is part of our job to be historians a la Kanga, tie it to what's happened over the last few years. But yeah, I just wanted to say that she was indeed at the podium, talking about how that's something that they're looking into.
I would just jump in and say that, well, first of all, on an encouraging note, one of the things that Chuck Schumer was trying to push through was to tie the actions around Title VI and anti-Semitism, which is this mechanism, to a specific definition of anti-Semitism. And I know some of you are familiar with it. It's the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition. This is an extremely broad definition that is the basis to sort of be able to claim anything that's critical of Israel as anti-Semitic. NYU actually used it to, used sort of the ideas in this to sort of as part of the way that they put into their policy that you cannot really be critical of Zionists even on campus, for example, but it has a lot of manifestations. And so I am proud to say that today, some of our leaders in the AAUP, along with the lawyers for Mahmoud Khalil, sort of briefed the Senate. And by the way, it's interesting to talk about brief, right? Because so much of what part of what my response.
Hang on. What? You briefed the Senate? I know this has been a rather boring presentation, but the reason that we watch the whole thing is sometimes they say insane stuff like this, like, we briefed the Senate?
As part of the way that they put into their policy that you cannot really be critical of Zionists even on campus, for example, but it has a lot of manifestations. And so I am proud to say that today, some of our leaders in the AAUP, along with the lawyers for Mahmoud Khalil, sort of briefed the Senate. By the way, it's interesting to talk about brief, right? Because so much of what part of what my response, what I want to get to is, so much of this is about people avoiding even paying attention to things. And to Kiyanga's point about creating the space, and Naomi's point about not having to agree in the beginning, it's like, how do you create the spaces, which are not necessarily the march, right? Where people can we can win people to a perspective. So what happened was folks testified today and that bill is tabled. I don't know, I'm sure somebody will try to resuscitate it, but
in the United States
that's
Senate?
one thing. But I just want to say that I want to figure out a way, because thinking about some of the coalitions we're building and the really difficult fronts here, right, where you're trying to invite people in who may not be on the same page about stuff, and you have to figure out how do you move. This has been an issue around Palestine. I will say the AAUP has a large.
I find working with like, listen, I know I'm supposed to say, if there's a bill in your state, you should go testify for that bill and you should tell them why you agree with it or disagree with it or whatever the fuck. I know I'm supposed to say that. I find testifying for state government hearings or anything else, I personally find it to be like a colossal waste of time. I think that the only reason that most people do it is to get video of themselves testifying, because oftentimes they'll just like record it and you can have the video and you can use that later. I suppose that that's good, but in terms of actually influencing, they've already decided what they're going to do anyway. And so unless you need a video of yourself saying something that can go viral on the internet, I really wouldn't bother. Honestly, it's kind of like a big ass waste of time, but that's just me.
Large membership, but we're like an interesting case in this regard because we have members who are absolutely 100% clear on the issues of, genocide and particularly scholasticide. We've had
Queer Marxism has nothing to do with being gay. It has nothing to do with being trans. Queer Marxism is a far left political ideology. If you're listening to people who are telling you that queer and trans or queer and gay are the same thing, you again need to stop listening to them. Because this is not, they don't care if people are gay. They don't care if people are trans. They care if people are queer. And that has nothing to do with any of the things that conservatives hate. It's a far left political ideology. So that's what that has to do with.
Great leadership from our colleague Donna Murch and others and colleagues and scholars in Gaza who have been doing some great teaching. And so the AAUP's position on this is, we recognize that our membership has a diversity of opinion around Palestine, and we have to recognize that, right? But what we're not going to do is shut down that conversation. We're going to talk about the fact that this genocide has destroyed every cultural institution, and we're not going to draw lines around our sort of academic solidarity. That can't happen. At the same time, we do have to say, what does it mean to have a conversation where you win people to a perspective? And one thing I want to say, one reason why this is I think tricky, and I think Naomi, you were alluding to this, is that dialogue is so often used to diffuse our movements, to sort of dull contradictions that need to be sharp, right? To sort of dull demands. How many times have students or people, activists, organizers, made a demand and then it got met with some kind of pizza dialogue or some version of it, or series of funded dialogues, instead of like, no, we actually said we knew what we wanted. So I get the idea of wanting to insist in demands and maybe not having a lot of patience for dialogue in that regard, because it is so often wielded against us. But what I will say is that I find myself now, when I'm talking to people in higher education who want to talk to their departments, to people in organizers, in their workplaces, to say, maybe don't just issue a demand to your colleagues, maybe have a conversation. You know, I mean, these are like organizing tech. Like, we know how labor does it, right? You literally rate people. Like, where are they at? 1 to 5, 1 to 4. It's a conversation to hear from them, which also is more persuasive. So, and again, I just want to distinguish it one more time from engaging in conversation with bad faith people who won't even acknowledge a genocide when it's right in front of our face. Those people, I'm sorry, but we probably will lose those people, and that's actually, I think, okay, right? But I think this, getting back to this conversation of winning people to a perspective, and what are the spaces we need to create to have slow, thoughtful, frustrating, angering, but ultimately successful winning to a position.
I mean, this is a theme that's come up, I think, in a lot of our conversations, and I was thinking about, when we were together in person in New York, right? Like that we have to help people unlearn worldviews that are incredibly damaging, but are deeply, deeply ingrained. The worldview that the state of Israel is reparations for the Holocaust, and that it is the only hope for Jewish safety, is one of the most enshrined narratives that is utterly entwined in many people's sense of self and identity, that exists in our culture. So the idea that people are supposed to just magic that away without having conversations is ridiculous. Like how are we going to get anywhere if we don't actually engage in the work of unlearning, relearning, having other stories about what the roots of genocide are? I'm co-hosting a teach-in later in the month. Astra's gonna come and speak in person.
Guys, do you know what I just discovered? PragerU has released a video with James Lindsay titled, "Is Maoism Coming to America?" Now, if you're new to my content, you might not understand why that's funny. But if you are a veteran of my content, you know exactly why that's funny. PragerU is now spreading absurd, I'm sure this is not the first time PragerU has done this. PragerU is now spreading the idea that what we're dealing with on the left in America is Maoism with American characteristics, which is completely false when you actually listen to leftists. But PragerU doesn't care about the truth. PragerU only cares about what's a good narrative. And, of course, supporting Israel at all times. So now PragerU is actively lying to the right again, and they're going to eat up and be like, this is Maoism with American characteristics. And none of them are ever going to listen to the left, and none of them have any idea what they're talking about. For those who might not understand what we're talking about, leftists explicitly denounce Maoism. That's not to say there isn't a Maoist here or there, but like leftists explicitly, the majority of them explicitly denounce Maoism. They are Marxists, Leninists who reject Stalin. Mao is in the tradition of Stalin. And so the idea that we're dealing with Maoism in America is just so absurd and unhinged. And it will tell you, if you hear someone talking about Maoism, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. And they probably hate China because of some conservative establishment bullshit thing, which probably has to do with Israel if PragerU's involved.
Called The Long Arc of Fascism. It's a kind of old-fashioned teach-in. And the response to it was overwhelming, which makes me think people want more of this. But the idea being that the story that we grew up with, that many of us in a mainstream, mainstream education, not just a Jewish education, but the mainstream story. You don't need the IHRA definition for this. Lifted the Holocaust out of time and space, lifted it out of history, refused to engage with what the Nazis learned from the genocide of the Naman Herero in Africa, and refused to learn from what the Nazis learned from settler colonialism in the Americas, refused to learn from what they learned from imperialism in Asia, despite the fact that anti-colonial leaders and scholars from Aimé Césaire to Nehru to Padmore at the time were going, this thing that you're saying is new, European fascism, is the boomerang, is the twin of colonialism.
Does Israel not like China because China's more powerful or something? What is Israel's, like, what, how do Israel and the Jews feel about China? Because I don't know, man. Like, listen, obviously I don't support Maoism. Obviously I don't support any Cultural Revolution stuff. Obviously, like, I think all that's bad. But what is China, like, today actually doing to us? I know they're stealing our intellectual property and they're stealing our books and they're stealing my t-shirt designs and all that. I'm not, you know what, that kind of sucks, but I'm talking about, like, more practically, like, what are they and I'm honestly asking the question, like, what is China doing that we should be concerned about? And why? Okay, here's what I really want to know. Why am I supposed to hate China? Because, you know, I went through this whole process when I kind of, like, red pilled on the JQ, where I realized that there was never any reason for me to hate Muslims in any way, because the only reason that the propaganda in the United States was about hating Muslims was because it was beneficial to Israel. So Israel basically, like, propagandized the United States to hate Muslims because they hate Muslims, and they want the United States to fight their wars in the Middle East for them against the Muslims. And that's why so many people, like, irrationally hate these people. Now, listen, I'm not saying that Islamic extremism is good. Obviously, that's bad. Obviously, I denounce that. I don't support Islamic extremism. I'm talking about just, like, normal Muslims. Like, I don't care if people are Muslim. I don't care if people live in an Islamic country. I don't care. It's their life. They can do what they want. But, like, is there a reason that I'm being told that I need to hate China? Because China right now for me is, like, on the bottom of a list of things that I'm concerned about. Like, I don't actually think that there's a reason for me to hate them. So why does PragerU want me to hate them?
And imperialism coming back to Europe, where the seed was planted, with the depending on where you want to start, the witch burnings or the expulsion of Jews and Muslims in the Spanish Inquisition, and because that history was never reckoned with, it could then be replicated by calling a settler colonial state reparations for the Nazi genocide, and now, with the warning of Gustavo Petro in Colombia, Gaza becomes the paradigm for treating the world's poor in the era of climate breakdown. That's what we're calling the long arc of fascism, and it's another worldview, right? It's and it takes time, right? And the problem is these kinds of connections are precisely what the anti-Semitism is being used as a pretext to detonate, right? What are the departments that are under attack, right? What scholarship is under attack? It's the scholarship that has been trying to weave this history together, right? It is anti-colonial scholarship. It is the African American Studies departments, right? It's not by accident that this campaign is going after them, because this is threatening in the same way that the Green New Deal is threatening. It's an alternative history and it's an alternative economic project, and this is the work we need to do, and we're going to get banned and silenced. I mean, I even hesitate to say we're doing it because I'm afraid that I'm sort of waving a flag saying, come and get us. But, you know, we've got to do this work. I don't know if you call it dialogue, but it's putting different worldviews in dialogue with one another, with each other, right? I think that's part of the work.
It also just is a reminder, you know, framing that is, it's a reminder that people don't just like awaken spontaneously all the time, right? Like it isn't enough to just see the images, even if they're coming raw on your phone. There is a tendency on the left, just like maybe poo-pooing dialogue, to kind of be like, okay, things will get so bad and people will wake up. And that is, you know, that has been proven wrong again and again. You know, and not to take us off the issue of Gaza, but I think that is one of the perils of this moment of financial pain, of financial insecurity. It's like, you know, there's no guarantee that's going to go our way, right? I mean, people who are enduring this instability can kind of want to, you know, hunker down and protect what's theirs. And there are all sorts of other messages and other stories trying to seduce them and help them make sense of this world. And so we have a moral duty, I think, to provide different narratives and to try to intervene. You know, I think that was one of the big heartbreaks, right, of COVID, was even with this virus shutting down the world, we didn't just realize that we're all interdependent. And even when the social safety net suddenly expanded overnight, we didn't suddenly go, gosh, we're entitled to.
Now, COVID is a reason to hate China, because China genetically engineered that shit and released it onto the world. So I can understand that
stuff. So it's just a reminder of how much work we have to do in moments of crisis like this. I mean, it's sort of like there's material to work with. There are things for us to point to, but we have to do that work of politics, of meaning making.
Well, I was going to say that I think that's a really powerful point. Because
very powerful, very stunning, very brave.
I think for all of Trump's ability to maintain some of his.
How long have I been doing this? 4 years. I started with DEI training in early 2021 and slowly worked back to radical. I've been watching Radical Revolutionary Socialism since mid 2022. Almost exclusively in 2023 and 2024. So about 4 years.
Campaign promises, right?
And in that time, the most annoying thing I've had to deal with is conservatives spreading bullshit lies about me the entire time that I've been trying to decode all this bullshit. So, you know, I'm not bitter or anything, but they did
provide the most
work.
Essential one, creating a golden age of prosperity in the United States. And so because of that, I think we can expect him to really lean on mass deportation and just the threat of it to provide a sort of counter, a different story, a different narrative. I think the kind of racist attacks, the Muslim ban done by other means, if they don't do it frontally, they'll do it through student visas, the revocation of student visas, the kind of insipid racist attacks on American monuments, trying to disappear the name of Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad.
Oh no, not the monuments.
To create some fake story about Black and white unity in the middle of slavery. in the build up to the 250th anniversary of the United States next year, we can expect a stream
that's
of
right.
bullshit like this.
We're going to get a 250th anniversary of the United States under Trump. That's probably going to have a great fireworks show.
So I think the need for the kinds of teach-ins that Naomi is talking about, the dialogues that Chinjara is talking about, and the kind of engagement that Astra is describing has never been more important, because it can't just be protests and demonstrations. We actually have to be talking about something and winning people to a different vision, a different political project, and that requires politics and engagement.
Absolutely. So as we move slowly toward wrapping things up, one thing I want to say that's been encouraging is to see people actually connecting the dots across some of these divides. So, for example, I know that there's been analysis at some of the students at universities like Columbia and other places that have said, well, we're not necessarily going to accept, it's true. We get the idea that there are some, listen, there's probably some professors who are only concerned about their research and not thinking about some of the other issues. But, some students have recognized, right, that like literally the reason why they're being held, they're holding these, part of the reason why they're holding these funds ransom is to force them to sort of crack down on folks' dissent. And that those things are linked, actually, right, in the opponent's strategy, and that we should not disconnect them in our strategy, right? Even as at certain times we might say, let's look at these cuts, let's talk about what is actually being cut here and what's being hurt, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a minute to take a look at that. And so I think it's important to see that. And I also want to underscore what Naomi was saying in terms of, what's being cut. I mean, look at what's being attacked, right? Look at all these areas, right? Gender studies, right? Which sort of question how, biopower and all these things are being used. There's a reason why this stuff is threatening to folks. Critical studies of empire, right? Critical studies around disability, right? And all these other things, like all these things are being attacked for a reason. And I think that, but I think again, what's encouraging to me, and I think, you look at some of the people coming in the street, is I do think people are starting to see these dots be connected and seeing how these things are wrapped up together. I want to give another shout out. I want to leave it for someone to offer a far more profound conclusion, but I just want to say that, like, April 17th is a chance for you to get into the streets and engage. And then, of course, do all the other things that have to happen after you're in the streets. May Day is coming up. Actually, Astra, you told me about introduced me to a really interesting campaign. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it yet, but it was about something that people could just do, like, in their workplaces.
Yeah, I told you about an initiative that's launching in North Carolina, organized by a group called Sandbridge, North Carolina, which is a fabulous immigrants' rights group that has been fighting wage theft, all of the wages that employers have been stealing for years from immigrant workers. And they are organizing something called Fourth Amendment Workplaces, and it's starting in North Carolina, but this is something that could easily go national. And we've all seen the signs from probably the first Trump administration where businesses had something like, refugees welcome here, immigrants welcome here. This is the next level. It's everyone welcome here, ICE is not welcome here. And we are trained up. We are trained up on our Fourth Amendment rights. We know our rights. We're going to protect our employees. We're going to protect our customers. And
one of the major ways that socialists recruit that people don't understand is through workplace. Really about the training itself. The training itself was inconsequential. DEI was about allowing opportunities to recruit and radicalize people to the far left. And so now what's happening? DEI, because it's gotten a bad reputation now, has done these executive orders, DEI is on its way out. That's not to say the things that they're doing are going to go away, but it's not going to be called DEI anymore. They're going to have to change the name of it. They're going to have to figure out how to do these things in other ways. So what are they doing? Now, instead of doing DEI, they're making their workplaces pro-immigrant, anti-ICE workplaces. Just like, I mean, we should have known, we should have seen it coming, but this is what the left does.
Immigrants, welcome here. This is the next workplaces, and it's starting in North Carolina, but this is something that could easily go national. And we've all seen the signs from probably the first Trump administration where businesses had something like, refugees welcome here, immigrants welcome here. This is the next level. It's everyone welcome here, ICE is not welcome here. And we are trained up. We are trained up on our Fourth Amendment rights. We know our rights. We're going to protect our employees. We're going to protect our customers. And we, small business owners, are also going to build solidarity. And there's a brilliant campaign launch video on this that features local businesses in North Carolina, some of which I'm familiar with. They're sort of pillars of the community. And they're saying this is scary, but we're doing it together. And this has multiple kinds of power in it. So you mentioned different kinds of power. It's about labor power, the power of the workers, protecting them. It is about mutual aid, people stepping up for each other. It also brings different constituencies into the fight, centering small business owners, which I think is rhetorically and strategically a good thing. And these are the kinds of efforts I think that we need to build out alongside these big national moments like the hands-off protests, right? Because, there's other work that needs to be done. Community members could go around and organize their local small businesses to sign on to an effort like this. And it also is an opportunity for people to get braver together. So I think people are working on similar campaigns that have this kind of grounded strategic focus, and this kind of stuff that makes me gives me hope. I also think we didn't mention the Wisconsin victory. I don't think we mentioned that. Yeah. And we've been critical of the Democrats here, but it was nice to see Elon Musk lose. And it was a really good sign, and so there's a lot of common sense still out there.
Astor, what was his quote when he lost? That actually this confirms his belief that humans are just fodder
for digital intelligence. Yeah.
When he
doesn't matter anyway. We're all just fodder for Grok.
Exactly. But I think that those moments where he really the mask comes off and his view of not just workers but just humans generally points to how fragile this just Frankenstein of a political coalition they've got going on over there on the right. I mean, it's wild stuff, to come to power promising to bring back American jobs and then just usher in this free for all for AI. That's what they're doing with obviously with Doge, right? They're pursuing their AI first strategy of replacing federal workers with bots. It's the same reason why our universities are rolling over, because they'd be perfectly happy to replace us with bots. It's also why they want to destroy the university, because they don't think it matters in the age of AI. And I do believe that we are seeing a possibility for the broadest possible coalition, which is like the humans versus the machines. And I do think it can peel away not everybody from Trump, and we don't want everybody, as Chandrai said. There are full-on fascists who can just do their own thing. But not everybody who voted for Trump is a fascist, and there are people who, decided to give it a whirl because they're so miserable in their lives, and just the thinness of his offer, and just the venality, the deceitfulness that actually, they're not offering jobs. Their vision of utopia is a world where machines replace humans at absolutely every turn. So I think there's something there. I know it's a weird thing to take hope from, but I do believe that this is something. And once again, it is the essence of fascism. I think about that Charlie Chaplin final scene in The Great Dictator, where he urges people to reject the system that sees you only as a machine. Is that enough hope? Kanga ordered hope in the chat.
Yes, I ordered
Yes.
hope in the chat. Hope on the horizon. No, I think despite my earlier comments that certainly were not disparaging, but whatever, about the protests last weekend, I think it was great. It was great to be on a big protest. It was great to be out in the streets with people. And, like I said, that for all of the kind of political critiques that I had, and especially at the end with the program and the speeches and, what wasn't said, I just think that the desire for people to want things to be different is what really holds the promise for us to get out of this. And I think, I think that is important. And to me, that is the value of being together with people in the streets, is that it reminds us of that in ways that doom scrolling, Zoom boxes, being on the internet just can't. And so human connection, I know. I love you guys, and
Except us.
Human connection, and being in proximity to each other is really the future, and the more we can kind of connect with that, I think the better we'll be. And I felt that over the weekend. So hope.
All right, is that it?
I like it. All right, y'all.
That's it. I can't take any more. I told you guys that was going to be boring. I thought that was going to be boring just based on, because like anytime, like this crew has done presentations together like 3 or 4 times now, and we've watched them before, and it's like every once in a while they say something, but this is like a pretty kind of like, they're not milk. These are socialists, but it's just like they're not giving the crazier takes. And Naomi Klein always has to walk that line because she's like a famous progressive author or whatever. So, we got a few golden nuggets, relatively boring day. But what I will tell you guys is tomorrow we're going to be doing something a little different, because tomorrow...
I don't understand how we can ultimately dismantle any of
it
if we don't stick to a...
Shut up. Tomorrow we are going to be doing something different, because tomorrow, unless they've changed the schedule, let me check. Tomorrow, which is... Oh, did they change the schedule? No, they didn't. Okay, so tomorrow at 3 p.m. I need everyone to pay attention. Is everyone paying attention? Because this is going to be a little different than what we normally do. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. 3 Eastern Time, not 5, 2 hours earlier, at 3, they are going to be doing a live stream called How MAGA is Winning Hearts and Minds Among the Progressive Base. And I actually think that's going to be legitimately hilarious. Like, this is going to be fucking comedy. And so we will be live streaming this at 3 p.m. And then we are going to come back at the 5 p.m. hour, because on Thursdays, we do Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. Thursday is now Counter-Revolutionary Book Club Day. That is our dedicated day to reading far-left crazy material. And so for our normal show tomorrow, we will be reading Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. I have to get last week's episode up. I'm going to get that up later today. So last week, we started a document. I actually have the episode edited and everything. I just didn't put it up. Last week, we started a document called Queering Anarchism. If you have not yet read Queering Anarchism, that's okay. You can come and read it with us. And we are going to be continuing our reading of Queering Anarchism. You can find that over on the Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. Go to the book club link in the top and scroll down and you will find the Queering Anarchism document. We are partway through the first chapter. We will be finishing up the first chapter and doing the second chapter. This is a collection of essays, okay? And it's crazy and it's awesome because it's so crazy. And so that is what we will be doing tomorrow. So at the 3 p.m. hour, we will be doing this. And then at 5 p.m., we will be doing Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. So it's a double feature tomorrow. And you guys can come and join us for that. And also, as a reminder, if you haven't bought my new book yet, which is called The Communist Manifesto, A Revolutionary Fairy Tale. This is my first novel that I've ever written, and I'm really proud of it. It is a dystopian fairy tale based on the Communist Manifesto. It is out now on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, and you can go pick up your copy on Amazon. And go do that, and go read it. And if you want to read the first chapter, you can head over to Red Menace Collective, which is redmenacecollective.substack.com. Click on the link right here that says read the first chapter, and you can go and read the first chapter. Okay? So that is all we've got for today, guys. I'm going to go take my leave. I'm going to go get some dinner. I think I might get some tacos. Maybe I'll make a burrito. It's Mexican night. Apparently talking about immigration makes me want to eat Mexican food. And so I'm going to go do that. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow for a double feature stream. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?